Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website, techinterview.guide, and thanks for dropping by. I'm going to be going through a handful of things today. If anybody wants a resume review, you can absolutely request a resume review. Just got to send it over. Let me know that you're sending over a resume, and we'll go from there. Um, so something sort of struck me this week. I went grocery shopping, and this is going to sound really weird. I went grocery shopping and I bought some cinnamon raisin bread. If you've ever had like the loaf of bread that has like the cinnamon, the raisin, and stuff in it, and it makes me feel a little bit nostalgic because when I lived in Ottawa, I had a buddy named Walter who played guitar, and I played a lot of piano and a lot of keyboard. And we would get together and we would jam on songs that we wanted to cover. We were kind of tinkering with the idea of like writing some of our own music, but we were mostly like writing, or we were mostly like practicing like cover songs to perform. And it was funny because I was a single guy, and he was married, had two little kids, and he's like, yeah, bring your whole keyboard kit over. He had a little music studio set up in his place, and we would just sit down, we would jam for hours. And one thing that he always did is during the jam session, we would pause. We would go upstairs to the kitchen, and he would toast some cinnamon bread. We'd put tons of butter on it, and we would just sit around. We would just chat, just what's going on with life and whatever. And we would eat this cinnamon bread, and then we go back and we jam some more. So whenever I have cinnamon bread or the cinnamon raisin bread, I feel very nostalgic about jamming with Walter. And I always appreciated, just being invited over to his place. But what struck me when it comes to things like the whole idea of the whole idea of doing something with intention and practicing something with intention, because the whole idea wasn't just for us to sit around and jam and be like, oh yeah, look at us, we can play this song, like yay us. We always did it with the intention of we're actually going to go perform the song. And we did. I mean, back in the day, I was doing a lot of performance at churches and weddings and things like that. And so we would practice these songs to go perform at these kinds of events. And so it was a thing done with intention. And I think when it comes to things like the job hunt, I think that's an important distinction to make too. Is that you can feel ready for the job hunt or not. Most people don't feel ready for the job hunt, especially in the midst of a layoff and so on. But I think that there's something to be said for doing something with intention, where you're practicing with the intention of I want to go get a job. I'm practicing leak code. I'm practicing talking about my skills. I'm practicing writing blog posts. I'm practicing something where you're actively doing something on a regular basis with intention. You're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. Like, I don't code just for the sake of coding. I do it to keep my skills sharp. I do it with intention of I want to go learn a new thing. I want to go learn a new way of doing something because I might need that skill in the future. Um, and so I think it's important to take that into the job hunt, that you need to do things with intention. That if you're grinding on leak code, or you're practicing writing some new application from scratch, or you're practicing how to do database stuff, or you're practicing system design, you're doing it with intention. And I think that that's a big part of what some people forget about doing, um, is they're practicing, and yeah, I think under, at the end of the day, like, yes, you're practicing because you need that job, and so you are doing it with the intention of getting a job. But I think that there's something a little bit different with I'm doing this for a particular purpose. Like when Walter and I would jam out on these songs, we would sometimes just practice a song because, hey, we're practicing the song and we want to be ready in case somebody asks us to perform a song. That's certainly part of it. But the other big part of it was if we knew that one of us had like a slot open up where, one of us was scheduled to sing or perform or something, that we would have something ready. And so I think that that's where things can be a little bit different. So if you know you have an interview coming up, you have to practice. If you don't know if you have an interview coming up, you should still practice. You can't wait until you get an interview and then suddenly try to cram for everything. I had a mentee reach out recently and was asking about system design and how do I cram for a system design interview. I'm like, you shouldn't cram. You should have been doing this all along. And I think that a lot of people forget that. I think a lot of people have the kind of the thought in their mind of, once I get an interview, then I'll start getting ready. But you have to be ready because that interview could happen tomorrow. Like you could have a recruiter call you up and say, "Hey, we want you to interview for this job in 3 days." You're not going to be able to cram in 3 days. You need to be practicing this stuff now. The interesting thing that I'm seeing in the tech industry a lot, and we've kind of been talking about this on the stream and in other publications and whatever for going on 2 years now, is the whole idea of like quiet quitting, where it's like I'm just gonna do like the least amount possible because the company doesn't care about me, so I'm just gonna put in my minimum effort to not get fired. Um, and I can understand where that comes from. At the same time, I'm also a little bit old school of like, you're paid to do a job, you should put in your best effort. Um, but a lot of people, they get working from home, they get distracted by things. I mean, I certainly get distracted by things. But I have to be very intentional about this, the discipline of what I do. And I think that when it comes to getting ready for job interviews, if you know that you want to quit, like completely quit your job, then you need to be practicing all the time. You need to be practicing your interview skills. You need to do mock interviews, get good feedback on what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, because just practicing interviewing yourself doesn't give you the best feedback as far as, oh, I should answer this a little bit better this way, or I should do this a little bit different that way. Unless you're doing it with intention, you're not going to have the same kind of results. And so I think it's important that if you're thinking about changing your job, you need to start practicing now. You need to get your resume ready now. You need to start preparing for, some eventuality of leaving your job, losing your job, or, you're going to be interviewing soon. You need to start that company research now. You need to start networking with companies now. You can't wait until you're out of a job and then go, oh, shoot, now I need to start networking. I mean, you can wait, but then you've got a big weight of starting that networking, starting that outreach of, oh, shoot, I need a job. Who do I know that's hiring? Start looking around for companies. Now you're spending weeks trying to figure out where do you want to apply, or do you just rage apply and just apply everywhere? Because that's the other thing too, is you can just be applying for jobs, interviewing all the time. And if you get a better offer from a company, then you can quit and take that other job. Just make sure that the job is legit, because I'm also seeing a lot of stories of, I got approached by a company, I interviewed with the company, they made me an offer, I quit my job, and then found out the other job was bogus. And it wasn't an actual company. They were like doing some info scraping or whatever. Or maybe you were helping them apply for some other job and, whatever. There's all kinds of weird stories out there. But I think you need to be careful about, doing company research, making sure companies are legit, knowing the kinds of companies where you want to apply, the kinds of work that you want to be doing, and so on. When I would apply for jobs in the past, I was very strategic about, this is the kind of company that I want to work for. I would pick like one or two companies. I would target them specifically with everything I did, projects, outreach, going to meetups that they would host, because I would tend to look for local companies. Um, and I would specifically target them and I would go get that job because I would show a lot of initiative of why I wanted that job, why I was going to bring value to that job. And so I only ever had to apply to a few companies at a time to go get a job. And that's something that you kind of learn over time of like what is it that you like to do? What is it that you like to build? For me, I like working for companies that build tools that other companies use. So, for example, I worked at SendGrid, built a lot of APIs there, built a lot of their applications there because they were a company that built things that other companies used to do whatever it was they do. I worked at the Rubicon Project. It was an ad tech company. I built tooling for other companies to help monetize what they do. I worked at Stream, building out, news feeds and activity feeds and things like that for other companies to use to build what their product was meant to be. And those are the kinds of companies that I really like working for. Now I work at Postman, where we build a tool that helps other people build APIs and sort of design out what they do as a company. That's something that I really enjoy doing. It's not just I'm an engineer behind the scenes, but I'm the engineer behind the scenes of what's powering your product. Um, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. It's I like working for companies that build things that other companies use. Strategically, from a job security perspective, those sometimes tend to be better jobs, especially when there are sort of tougher economic times coming up. And we've certainly been in tough economic times, lots of layoffs and so on over the past year. And that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. What's interesting though is I'm still getting hit up all the time from recruiters saying, hey, you should come interview with our company. And I start researching the companies like, but you just laid off like 5% of your team, 10% of your team, and you're like turning around less than a month later and you're hiring new people. Like, what's up with that? Like, why not just keep the people that you had? Instead, you're laying off other people and now you're trying to hire in like fresh people. Like that seems weird. At the same time, I've also been saying on the stream that when companies do layoffs, they still need to hire. They still have initiatives, they still have projects, but it's always disappointing when you hear of companies that are like, we need to lay off all these people to save on money, or we need to lay these people off, for some economic purpose or whatever. And then they turn around, they're like, oh, wait, we laid off the wrong people. We just had a massive brain drain, as we call it. We had all these great people leave the company. And it's disappointing when you see that happening. Um, but what feels weird to me is when a company does a layoff and then they turn around, they're hiring for a role. And it's like, well, did you consider any of those people that you just laid off for any of these roles that you're hiring for? Like, I think one thing that sort of hit it for me this past Friday, I had a colleague at Postman get laid off. And it wasn't part of like a massive layoff. It was like just this one person, I think, who lost their job. And they do developer relations type of work. Well, my team is trying to hire 2 DevRel people, and we've got this hiring freeze going on. Why not just transfer that person to our team? Like, why did they have to lose their job? Like, we were looking for more people in that role on our team. Why lay them off? Like, why not just transfer them over to our team? Like, why not keep them? So the only thing I can think of is if they didn't offer some sort of lateral move, then it was performance based, that they got let go because they were just an underperformer or whatever. But it feels weird when you see a company do a layoff and then recruiters are still reaching out saying, hey, we're trying to hire, you should come join our team. It's like, but you just laid off a bunch of people. So that thing kind of feels kind of weird. And so it goes to show you that companies aren't as invested in you as an employee on a personal level. They want to get what they can out of you. They want to pay you as little as possible to do a job. And then they're going to discard you. When they think they're done with you, they're going to let you go. It's a reality of working in tech. They're gonna use as much of you as they can for as little money as possible. This is why you should always negotiate for base salary and then negotiate everything on top of that. You have to get as much money as you can out of the company because once they're done with you, they're done with you. They're not going to give you any notice. They're just going to let you go. And it's disappointing when that happens. And it's awful when it happens, but that's the reality of it. And so being practiced all the time is my advice for today. And I think that's going to kind of be our theme for today is be ready. Be ready for anything. The old Boy Scout motto, be prepared, right? I grew up doing Boy Scouts and whatever, and I know they've had a bad rap, over the years. But a lot of what you learn there, as far as like just practical skills and whatever, kind of stick with you. But one of the things that has kind of always stuck with me is their motto, be prepared. And I think that that carries over into the job market and the job hunt as well. You need to have your resume ready all the time. You need to keep that thing up to date all the time. Whenever you're hired, start, add that to your resume right away. Any new project you get involved in, start adding bullet points on your resume right away, because you don't know if you're going to be there a month, 3 months, a year, 3 years. But once you're done and you leave that job, you're going to be scratching your head over, like, what were all those things that I did at that job? You need to be adding that stuff to your resume and your LinkedIn all the time. This is what I was responsible for. This was something that I was a part of. This is something that I started, some initiative that I was a part of. You have to be adding that stuff all the time, because you're going to forget about it. Or once you lose your job, you're going to lose access to old notes and, Google Drive and Slack and whatever. So you have to keep backups of that stuff, like, on your own, because once you lose access to the company, you lose access to a lot of that information. I'm not saying copy confidential information. I'm not saying that at all. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm saying, when you're involved in a project, when you have something going on with a project, you have to start adding that to your resume now. As soon as you get involved in that project, you need to start making notes about it. Keep offline notes, whether you keep an actual notebook or, you maintain your own Google Drive or whatever. Like, keep keep those notes somewhere. Keep a resume going all the time somewhere. Keep practicing things like leak code. It's an unfortunate part of our interview process, but it's something that you do need to practice, because a lot of companies are going to have some expectation of you demonstrating your practical skill as a developer. And so you need to be ready for those kinds of interviews all the time. If you're hanging out in chat, if you're kind of lurking in chat, say hello. Drop me a follow if you're finding any of this helpful. Feel free to drop a follow. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, appreciate any subscriptions as well. I've also got a ton of playlists if you want to check out my YouTube channel. If you're not already watching this on YouTube, go check out my YouTube channel. I have a lot of stuff on playlists over there. I'd appreciate any playbacks of old videos and things like that. I know some of them get a little long, but I think it's worthwhile going through and watching some of these old videos and things like that. I think it's important to understand why we need to be practiced, why we need to be ready. Because again, like, I had this colleague just out of the blue lose their job on Friday. I just did a live stream with them on Thursday, and they were talking about, oh yeah, I'm part of this like upcoming hackathon, and got all these initiatives and whatever. And then Friday they lost their job. So it just goes, like, it kind of shows you that even if you are preparing to do things at work, they've got you lined up to work on something, they got you lined up for a project, or lined up to go talk at a conference or whatever, you can still lose your job. So you have to be ready. The more preparedness you have, and I don't want to sound all alarmist about it, but the more prepared you are, the shorter your job hunt is going to be if you do need to change your job. Whether it's forced on you to change your job because you've lost your job, or whether you are deciding just to change your own job, you need to prepare. You need to be ready. You need to have that resume up to date. You need to have a list of accomplishments up to date that you can speak to with recruiters. You need to be able to talk about, technical aspects of what you do in your job. You have to be ready for that. The more ready you are, and the more practiced you are, the shorter your job hunt is going to be when you need to make that change, because you're going to be ready to go. You're going to have those skills practiced, polished. You'll have done the occasional mock interview. I mean, when I was, working at a lot of jobs in California, and when I first moved out here to Colorado, I was interviewing all the time. I wasn't even looking for another job, but I was in a position where I was interviewing other people for the companies that I was working at. And so sometimes I would go interview with other companies just to see how other companies did their interviews. And I would kind of take away lessons learned, what was good, what was bad. Should I change something about how I did what I did as a team, and kind of lead my interview team about, like, hey, let's not do that anymore. That was kind of a bad experience. Like, are there things like that that we can do to improve our own process? And so I would go interview with companies just because. I wasn't even looking for a job, but I would go interview with companies, and it helps you to kind of learn about yourself. So, does that mean you should just go interview all the time? I mean, that's really up to you. Some people, like, you don't want to get a reputation for, like, oh, there's that Ian guy. He's just going to interview and just waste your company's time, because he's going to interview, you're going to make him an offer, and he's going to say no and just stay where he is. But I know some people, they would go just to interview to keep those skills sharp. And if they got an offer out of it, then they would go back to their old workplace and say, hey, I got an offer for this other job. I would really rather stay here. Can you match this? Like, this company's going to pay me 10% more, 15% more. Like, can you match that? Some companies may do that begrudgingly for a little while, but a lot of times the company's going to take a look at that and go, all right, you're already kind of out the door. You're thinking about leaving anyway. So we're just going to start hiring a replacement for you, and we're just going to let you go in 2 or 3 months anyway. But the fact that you're interviewing and you're getting offers is a good sign for you that, yes, you are practiced enough that you could go get another job if you needed to. So it's up to you whether you actually want to go interview with the intention of actually getting another job, or just going and interviewing with doing it with intention that you are ready to go get another job if you need to. And so I would highly suggest the latter of the two. Hey, fool, good to see you. My previous manager at a principal never matched offers. Yeah, I mean, some will just say, like, hey, we can't match that, so you get that other job, best of luck to you. This is also why, and I've said this on the stream too, you never want to lie to people about actually having an offer. I've seen that actually happen. I've seen like students at the school where I used to teach, they'd be like, oh yeah, I told this other company I had an offer, or this company made me an offer, I'm going to tell them that I have another offer. It's like, no, don't do that. If you don't actually have another offer, you never want to lie about it, because that other company could say, we can't match that, so we're going to pull out. Good luck with that other company. And now you have zero offers, right? Or if you're too aggressive about playing multiple companies off each other, what happens if they both pull out? Now you don't have any offers, right? You don't want to do that to yourself. But yeah, I mean, fool's right. Your company could just say, like, no, we can't match that. See ya. We'll consider that a resignation. And so you have to be sure that if you are interviewing with the intention of getting an offer just to better position yourself at your current company, keep in mind that could backfire. If you're interviewing with the intention of, I really want to get more money from somebody, anybody, don't care, I need better income, then great. You interviewed, you got an offer for more income, so go take that job. But kind of the whole theme that I've been talking about today is just do it with intention. Go practice with the intention of, I want to get another job. Be ready. Keep that resume up to date. Any new project you have, keep that resume updated. Add bullet points all the time of things that you're doing, things that you're involved in, open source projects that you're kind of tinkering with. Like, keep that stuff up to date all the time. Because if you don't keep it up to date, like I said, then when you do need to update it, then it's this big scramble of, like, oh shoot, I need to get a resume together. I got to think of that list of accomplishments. Like, you've got all this stuff that you need to do all over again. That's going to be much harder to do after the fact. So be ready for it. Be ready. Keep the resumes up to date. Because it's a tough industry out there right now. There are a lot of people competing for what feels like fewer jobs, but there's still a lot of jobs out there. There are still more jobs in the tech industry than there are people to work those jobs. So we still have an advantage. As the worker, we still have an advantage that there are still a lot of jobs out there. Yes, companies are being picky, and so the interview process feels longer. You can kind of negotiate some of that stuff right up front with the company. When you start having phone calls with them, you can say, what's your process like? And they say, oh, we got 6 interviews and a coding assignment, whatever. I mean, you can talk to them and say, okay, are those 6 interviews really necessary? Like, can you look through my background? Can I show you this or that? Can I give you some pre-recorded videos of such and such? Or can I give you some take-home assignments I've recently done, or show you some code that I've recently done, and skip some of these steps? Because I really want to come work for your company. But if this is going to drag out over 3 or 4 weeks, that's too long. Like, I want to wrap this thing up really quickly. You can talk to them about it. I mean, they might skip some steps. They might not. They might say, well, that's our process. We have to be fair to everybody. It's like, okay, but, you know, like there are things that you could evaluate. You could choose to evaluate certain things differently to where I don't have to jump through this many hoops. Go ahead and ask. The worst they'll say is no, but you don't know unless you ask. When I did my job hunt a year ago, that's exactly what happened with me. I had one company ask me to write some code, deploy it in the cloud. I did. And like literally a day or two later, I had someone else say, okay, we want you to write some code, deploy to the cloud. I'm like, I just did this one. Why don't you evaluate that? And they're like, oh, yeah, cool. And it was a dad joke thing. So, I mean, everybody, as much as they say they don't, I think a lot of people like the silly humor of dad jokes. And so, that kind of helped things a little bit, I think, with just levity. And it's like, okay, this person's fun, let's bring them on the team. It can definitely help things out. So you have to find something that's fun and interesting and whatever that is going to really stand out to them. Go, oh, cool! Look at this thing that this person built. Um, and so I think it's important, like have this stuff ready all the time, practice all the time. Do mock interviews with people, find other people in the industry that are willing to do mock interviews with you. There are sites out there that don't cost money to practice mock interviews. If you're currently employed and you want to be ready, you can pay for mock interviews. I do paid mock interviews on 2 different platforms. And I'm happy to talk about those offline. If you have questions, I can like point you to those resources. But I think it's important that you keep that stuff practiced and ready to go. Keep your resume up to date. Keep working on code so that if someone, is looking at your GitHub profile, they see, pretty solid, check marks or the little boxes on GitHub and whatever. Is it 100% necessary? I've also seen people criticize the whole like, oh, you have to have like solid green on GitHub. It's like, um, there was something I saw on Twitter recently where someone took a snapshot of someone else's GitHub timeline. They literally had like one solid green commit the entire year. And they're like, yeah, if you're a senior dev and your GitHub looks like this, don't even bother applying to my company. It's like, okay, well, that's a bit much because maybe they're working on a different, GitHub account or something like that for where they actually work. Doesn't mean that they're not coding all day, every day. So I think it, Bjorn had one greened out, the C++ guy. Yeah, I mean, it might have been something like that. Um, but I think it's still important that you can show people like I am actively coding all the time. Like I'm actively working on something constantly. I'm always working on the chatbot here. I'm always adding something to the chatbot, or I'm doing some automation around the house or something. Like I've always got something going on. Um, yeah, God forbid a company use GitLab. Exactly. I mean, you can always put that down as your profile if they're really looking for something like, GitLab or Bitbucket or something else. Like put that on your resume if you don't have GitHub. But like companies just want to know like you are actively coding like all the time. Like that's really all they want to see is you're doing something recent. They're not going to go back years and years through your GitHub profile and make sure that it's solid green for 5 years in a row or something. They're not going to bother doing that. I mean, if they are, then they're too picky and you don't want to work for them anyway because it means that they're going to really micromanage what you do. My company uses private Azure DevOps repos, not going to show up. Yeah, exactly. But I've talked online on the stream about like how you can sort of mirror that same sort of thing. Like you can write little script hooks and things like that. That when I make a commit to the company repo, I'm making another commit to a private repo on my own GitHub, so it still shows up as a green dot on GitHub. So even though the company doesn't use GitHub, every time I make a commit to the company, it's also going to make a commit to my private repo over there. So it'll kind of mirror the amount of activity that you had. And because it's private, they can't actually see what it was. And so like those green dots on GitHub they're not based on the size of the commit. It's just the quantity of commits. So if you make 10 commits a day at your work, you can mirror those 10 commits over to your private profile. I do shader stuff in my free time on GitHub, so my green dots are completely irrelevant, but they are there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I try to keep stuff going all the time. I use GitHub here at home, even with my own private automation and the chatbot and stuff like that. I'm constantly pushing stuff up to GitHub all the time. And so my GitHub looks pretty solid. I try to take Sundays off from coding if I can. Um, but there are also days where I don't feel like coding here at home either. So you go look at my GitHub and there are going to be gaps on my own GitHub, for a few days at a time or a week at a time. It's just, I don't feel like doing anything on my chatbot this week. But I'm constantly going in and I'm revamping things. I'm optimizing the code. I'm deduplicating some effort in my code, or I'm working on the whole clip thing, which I still need to finish. Like, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. Deuce XR, good to see you in chat. I work in aerospace. All my commits I do for work will always be within these walls. I should start using GitHub for personal projects. I mean, depending on the kinds of company that you want to go work at, some of them are going to be looking at your GitHub profile to try to figure out, like, is this person actively coding? And again, that's all they're really using that GitHub check for, is they're looking at your GitHub going, are you working on stuff recently, or is all of your work in the past? Like, they just want to know, like, are you keeping your skills up to date? Are you staying sharp on things? But again, that's kind of the theme of the session today, is like, you gotta be up to date on stuff. Like, keep your resume up to date, keep projects going, like, keep lots of notes about what you do, because you could lose your job tomorrow and you have no idea. And I hope that doesn't happen for anybody watching the stream, but there are, you know, things happen in the tech industry, and you never know when a big layoff is going to happen, or whether you're going to be affected by a layoff. Um, but like I was saying, like on Friday, a friend of mine from work got laid off, and it's disappointing when that happens, because it's like, could you have found like another position in the company somewhere for this person? Like, did they have to completely lose their job? Like, you know, like they were doing developer relations work on a different team. My team's trying to hire more developer relations people. Like, could we have not brought them over to our team and like keep them employed? Like, the company doesn't care about you as a person. Some of your managers, like, they may start to form those friendships and relationships or whatever, but like, at the end of the day, they don't care about you as a person. They're in the business to make money. They want to get as much out of you as possible. So you have to be ready. You have to do things with intention. You have to practice with intention to be ready to go interview and get ready for a job hunt if something happens. Like I said, I hope that doesn't happen to anybody on the stream. But if it does, the more prepared you are ahead of time, the shorter your job hunt is going to be if you do need to go get another job. Now, for me, I want to stay at Postman for several years. That's my intention. I don't want to leave Postman. It's a great company. I like it. It's a lot of fun. I'm working on some interesting things. I get to go do all the DevRel stuff and do conference talks and write a lot of content and do videos and stuff like that and do live streams. And I have a lot of fun with that. It's a good time, and it's something that I'm good at. At the same time, though, I'm one of 600 people, 700 people at the company, and they could decide, like, we don't need Ian anymore, and I lose my job, and then what? I've got a family to support. I got a mortgage to pay. I got bills. I got to cover those expenses. Yeah, I've got savings, but I don't want to have to dip into those savings. Like, if I need another job, I need another job, like, in a month or less, ideally. But it takes time to network, get to know companies, talk to recruiters. Like, that all takes time. And if you need a job in a hurry, then you need to find a way to get that job in a hurry. So you got to do what you got to do. And does that mean you start networking now? Does that mean you start, reaching out to companies and be like, hey, I'm not really looking for work, but I am looking to, like, get to know other companies and so on. Hey, Madeline, good to see you in chat. So Madeline just got a job. Super jazzed about that. That was a lot of fun to hear. I was lurking on Madeline's stream, and Madeline's like, Ian, I got a job. So I was happy I was able to help out with the resume side of things there. So if anybody else wants a resume review, let me know. Just let me know that you're sending it over. We've got a link over here that you can send it to, and I'll do resume reviews if you're interested. But yeah, I actually heard from 3 mentees. So one of them was Madeline. Another one also did 100 devs, and I also heard from someone else at Turing, the school where I used to teach, that they got jobs all within the past week. They all got job offers. So I was super excited about that. So gave you a bomb resume review. Well, I mean, I didn't like completely bomb your resume, but hopefully it was a good resume review. Um, no, I know what you mean. But yeah, it's exciting for me. Like I had a lot of ups and downs last week. My youngest turned 12, so it's like, you know, only another year and all of my kids are teenagers. Like that's weird to think of. Like, another year and a half and my oldest is going to be driving. Like it's weird to think of that. And then the same day that my kid turned 12, I lost an uncle. And then it was just lots of ups and downs. Like, mentees are getting jobs, but then a friend of mine gets laid off, and it's like, it's this big give and take. But you have to be ready. So, Madeline, in case you haven't been lurking around very very long, um, one of the things that I've been talking about on the stream today is doing things with intention and being ready for the job hunt just in case. So my advice to you, Madeline, is when you start this job, keep your resume up to date. Like as soon as you get involved in a project, start putting bullet points on a resume to talk about these are the projects I was involved in. This is the kind of thing I did. These are the kinds of features that I added to our product. Like you got to keep track of that stuff on your own. Because if you ever lose that job, you're going to lose access to all your notes, your potentially like certain GitHub histories and things like that. You're just not going to have that anymore. If the company gives you a laptop, you got to give that laptop back. Anything on that laptop is gone. Like you got to keep backups of that stuff. Not that you're, and to be clear, you're not backing up like company confidential stuff, but like keep track of notes, keep track of the things that you're involved in. Keep that resume like as a live living document all the time. Like you're just constantly adding to that all the time because that's going to help you grow that really long resume that then when you need to go apply for a job, you can trim it back down, but you've got everything on there. You don't have to, like my friend that just lost their job on Friday, they weren't expecting to lose their job. I don't think anybody is. And so now they've got to scramble. They lost access to Slack, their email, Google Drive, the whole bit. And now they're like, what were all the things I was involved in? Like, I got to go update a resume again, and I got to think of all the stuff to put on a resume. It's like, you should be putting that stuff on your resume all the time. It's not that the company doesn't like you, but at the end of the day, they don't care about you. They want to get as much out of you as possible for the least amount of money possible, and not to sound all bleak about it. But if you lose your job, the more prepared you are for the interviewing, the faster you're going to get another job. But if you have to start from scratch, you lose your job on Friday, and Monday I got to start looking for a job. I got to start building a resume. I got to start networking with people. I got to start working on projects. Like you got to do all of this stuff. That takes time away from the actual job hunt of getting another job. And so the more prepared you are, the more ready you can be that if something does happen and you lose that job, you can get another job faster because you've already got your resume up to date. You've already been practicing side projects. You've already been, keeping those interview skills sharp. Like you gotta do that stuff. You're the first one out of layoffs at the company. I mean, that happened, with me back in the day too. Back in 2001 when the first .com bust really happened. I was interviewing for a job back in Canada. I had moved down to the United States, and I really didn't like California. I moved there in June of 2000, I think. And by Christmas that year, I'm like, I hate California. I'm going to move back to Canada. And I actually found a company that was willing to move me back. And they're like, well, we're going to bring you in at an intermediate level. We have to hire a senior level person. And then the whole .com thing sort of fell apart in 2001. And I realized that had I moved back, I would have been the first one out the door too. So I chose to stay where I was instead of moving back. Because yeah, you're right. The newer you are, well, I should say that the newer you are, that doesn't necessarily make you the biggest target for a layoff, but you are a target for a layoff because they haven't invested that much in you. But at the same time, it costs a lot of money to hire somebody. And your salary is a lot less than people that they've been paying for years and years, where they've got to do raises and promotions and whatever. So they might let the more expensive people go and keep the more junior people because they cost less. But if they let the senior people go, they're taking a lot of knowledge with them. And now you're kind of left on your own to go explore and figure things out because a lot of that domain knowledge has left the building. And so I've heard of that happening where they let the expensive engineers go, they keep the cheaper engineers, but the cheaper engineers are newer and they don't know what's going on. They don't have that deep knowledge on things. And so they have to kind of struggle, and so it ends up really slowing the company down. So yeah, it's something that you definitely have to kind of pay attention to, if that happens. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be the first one laid off. So I don't want to give the wrong impression there. You're not necessarily going to be the first one laid off, but you are you are on the short list, so to speak. But it's not as much at risk that you think, because I think a lot of companies are more likely to keep the cheaper employees. So I've switched from the hunt to how to survive your first 3 months. Yeah. So many people say document everything, don't let your guard down. True. Document everything, ask a lot of questions, document when they give you answers, and then turn around and ask them to verify that what you wrote down is accurate. Because that lets them know that you're keeping documentation, that you're keeping notes with the intent of learning. And then when they say, yes, that's accurate, then what you want to do is you want to ask them, cool, can I put this on like a company wiki somewhere that the next person we hire, they've already got these notes? Or is this something that, we can work as a team to like keep up to date? Because one of the first things that goes out the window when companies get really busy is things like documentation and process and how things actually get done. And if they know that someone is willing to kind of take that charge and take the lead on, hey, let's make sure that all this stuff gets documented, to help other people out, that actually looks really good for you as an employee. This is advice that I gave a Turing student years ago. I said, when you get in there, start documenting the heck out of everything that you learn. Make sure that you're asking them for accuracy checks because you don't want to document things incorrectly. And then go to your boss and say, hey, this is what I've been doing. Like, is there somewhere that we can keep all this information? And what the person ended up doing instead is they had like a probation period where the company's like, we're going to pay you this much, but in 6 months we'll do like a review kind of thing. And when they went in for that 6 month review, they brought in all the documentation, like plunked it down in front of the manager, and they're like, here's everything I've been documenting. So the next person you hire, they'll have all this information ready to go. And didn't present it as like, yeah, the next person you hire is going to have a much easier time than I did because look at all the stuff I had to document. So you can choose to take a negative approach on it, or you can take a more positive approach, where in this person's case, they said, the next person you hire, they've got all this stuff documented and they'll get up to speed even faster. You've got more like better onboarding and all this kind of stuff. And so they put a very positive spin on it, and their manager, like, it impressed their socks off. They're like, can't believe you did that. That was amazing. And that's the kind of thing that's going to make you really stand out, especially as an entry level dev. That kind of thing is going to really stand out to them to say, hey, look at what you're willing to do and help the company kind of grow overall. Like, those are signs of a good teammate. Yeah, it's extra work, and it's extra that they're maybe not asking you to do, and you want to be careful that you don't sort of put yourself in a position of like, oh, now you're the documentation person, but you do want to let them know that you're willing to do that kind of thing, that you're capable of doing that kind of thing, and that you want to help out with things as needed. But especially when it comes to hiring and onboarding, like, that's a huge expense for a lot of companies. And so the faster they can onboard somebody to make them productive, the faster they'll start seeing the return on their investment of hiring somebody new. So, Fool says, I got laid off twice and experienced multiple downsizes. It affects you in different ways. Yeah. Even if you keep your job, you might feel guilty. Yeah, it's what do they call it? Survivor's guilt. Um, Keeping things for yourself. Where I am, don't give your extra security. People that shared are more likely to be kept. Yeah. So I've also worked with people that are like, if nobody else knows how to do this, then I have job security because nobody else can do it but me. Um, Having been a manager, that would have been the first kind of person that I do let go. It's like, hey, I want you to document that stuff because here, like, I'm going to give you 2 weeks notice that you are losing your job. So I want you to sit down and document this stuff before you leave. Because that's not the kind of person that I want to have on my team. And so that would be it would start as a disciplinary action, not necessarily to fire them, but it'd be like, hey, you need to share this information with the team. Because if you need to take a vacation or, something drastic happens, like you get hit by a bus or something like that, like, we need people on the team that can cover this. And you need to share this information with other people. You need to share that process. Um, and at the end of the day, I mean, I would be changing my hiring practice to make sure that I'm hiring people who have that mindset of I'm willing to share what I know. I mean, that's the whole catchphrase that I have on this channel is share what you know and we all win. When you keep things to yourself, you might help yourself in the short term, but isn't it better that we all get better at this? And I think that that's why I wanted to kind of build up this community over the last almost 2 years now of helping each other out and just being there for one another, even if it's just the support of, hey, I had a crappy week, and just commiserating with each other and talk about like, oh yeah, we all had a bad week, or I had something really good happen, and it kind of cheers us all up. Like Madeline got a job. That's amazing. That actually really cheered me up. Um, it's very rarely true that no one else could figure it out. That's exactly right. I mean, if you can figure it out, so can somebody else. Like someone can go in and read the code and see what's going on, or if we can log in, you know, and look at your shell history or something like that. But if you're hiding your shell history where, we can't even see the shell commands that you execute to like go do things, then that's also a sign of a bad teammate. It also shows that you've got things memorized that other people need to know. Other people need to know how to do these things. So, it's something that I would change my hiring practice to make sure that I'm hiring people who are willing to actually share their knowledge, because you have to be able to do that. Um, and I think a lot of companies do, to some degree, they do some kind of screening to make sure that you're going to fit in well on the team, because it doesn't do them any good at all for you to just kind of be sort of a solo cowboy, whatever, where you're the only one that knows how to do something. I mean, when I worked in the ad tech company, I was the only person working on a critical piece, but I was also sharing like what I was building and how I built it and why. And I kept asking my manager, like, hey, I really need people to help me on this because I can't be the only person that does this. My manager never gave me any help until I was on paternity leave. And even then, they didn't trust the person that I was training on how my software worked. Like, I spent 2 or 3 weeks going over the software with this other person so they knew it inside and out. Um, and it didn't matter because the VP didn't trust them to do a good job, and so I still got called even when I was on paternity leave to make changes and to fix things. So it's kind of a lousy feeling. So anyway, um, I appreciate the positivity. I'm spending a lot of time doing coffee chats with other 100 devs. Awesome. In the next few weeks, pay it forward. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. When I help somebody out and they get a job, like turn around and help somebody else out. That's the best. It's the best possible way of doing things, because it just multiplies out from there. And it doesn't have to be a multiplication of my advice, but just sharing your own experience of this is what I went through, this is how I got this job, this is how I stood out to this company. Talk about your own process. I think it's important to let people know that kind of thing. Especially, I think the biggest thing in the job hunt is just to let people know you're not alone in this. You're not the only person going through this. You're not the only person having problem with this or that. You're not the only person who's getting rejections. You're not the only person getting like auto rejected from the applicant bots. Like, you're not the only person going through that. Like, lots of other people are going through that with you. There are communities of people that you can be a part of that understand what you're going through, and they're there to even just to be a listening ear of like, man, this sucks. Like, yep, it sucks. I'm sorry you're going through that. I've gone through it too. And it doesn't even have to be like, oh, well, here's what I did to get out of it. Sometimes people just want someone to listen. They're not necessarily looking for help. They just want somebody to listen. I think so many times a lot of us get caught up in like trying to go into fix it mode. Especially guys. Guys tend to jump into fix it mode as opposed to just supportive, listening ear. But, that's just a difference in communication styles, really. But I'm basically reiterating Leon's advice, but getting the stamp of approval on it will encourage people to keep it going. Yep, for sure. For sure. I've been trying to get unbanned from Leon's Discord for like, going on like 9 months, 10 months now. I've sent him public Twitter messages, private Twitter messages. I've tried reaching out every way I know how. I've tried emailing him through the company website and the whole bit. I'm still banned. But apparently I'm not the only one. Apparently he hasn't gone through and like unbanned anybody. So I got banned because I was sharing about the email newsletters that I wrote. Got a button here for it somewhere. Here we are. So I've got these newsletters that I wrote up on how to prepare for interviews and what tech interviews are like and sort of how to work through them and so on. And apparently I posted it in like a wrong channel. They have a channel for like self promotion. I didn't put it in there. But I was trying to help people out in their Discord community. And because I had numbers on the end of my name, the 736, and if you don't know where the history of the 736 comes from, you're just like, oh, here's some random person with a random number. And I think a mod thought I was a bot and just auto banned me, like just immediately banned me from their Discord. And then realized, like, oh, shoot, this person is an actual human being, was actually trying to help people out. Um, but it's apparently Leon is the only one with the power to actually unban people. And so he would go through cycles where it would, every month or two, he would go through and like unban people. But the last I heard from somebody was that he hadn't unbanned anybody for like 6, 7, 8 months. Like he stopped unbanning people. It's like, you get banned, you're banned. Um, and so it's unfortunate because I've tried appealing the process. They had a Google form that you could fill out and explain what happened and why you should be unbanned and whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm just here to help people out. Like, I'm sorry I put that in the wrong spot. Like, I'll use the right spot. I'm not trying to like steal people away. Like, I'm totally supportive of 100 devs. I talk about 100 devs and what a great program it is. I've gifted subs and whatever because I want to help build that community and whatever. Never helped. Um, like, it didn't help my cause. It didn't get me unbanned at all. So I actually made a second Discord account. I joined the 100 devs community, but you have to add a phone number to be a verified Discord user so that you can actually speak in the channel. And I tried using a voice over IP phone number and it wouldn't accept it. So I had to put in my real phone number, but my real phone number is also tied to my banned account. So as soon as I put that phone number in, that account also immediately got banned. And so like I can't get back in unless I use a completely different phone number where I can get a text message to verify who I am, and I've only got one cell phone. I'm not going to go buy a whole new cell phone plan just to verify a second account. So then I've got to like bounce back and forth between multiple Discord accounts. Like, I'm not going to do that. I want to help people out. And if people want help, they can come by the stream, but I would love to help more people on a regular basis. With sharing advice and doing resume reviews and whatever. So if any of you are in the 100 devs community and you want to help bring people over, I'd appreciate it. But apparently I can't go do that myself. So don't get yourself banned by promoting my stuff. I mean, Leon is a nice guy. It's just, it's unfortunate that I got banned the way that I did. And then there's no unban process now. So, anyway. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out at some point. But in the meantime, I've had other people try to advocate, on my behalf to the mods and things like that. But even the mods are like, no, we understand it was a mistake. Like, yes, Ian needs to be unbanned, but we don't have the power to do it. And I get it though. They've got thousands and thousands and thousands of users on their Discord community. They have to keep it protected from spammers and bots and things like that. I get where they're coming from. I run a Discord community too. You want to keep that kind of stuff out of your Discord community. So, I get it. I get why those things are in place. I'm not trying to argue that those things shouldn't be in place. I'm just saying, please, I'd like to come back. I'd like to help people out. But in the meantime, like I said, I've got people who are willing to like post occasionally and say, hey, come check out Ian's stream or whatever. So, I mean, if they have a channel on there saying that somebody's streaming, helpful advice or something like that, I'm more than happy to hear it. I used to have like 100 devs tag on the live stream, and I actually took that off because I don't want to be spammy about it either. I know I tag 100 devs on Twitter when I go live on Sundays, just so that people that do 100 devs, if they look for that tag on Twitter, they'll see, oh, there's interview prep. If people want help, they can come by, and hopefully other people are sharing, the content and whatever. So we'll figure it out. It's not like they're not the only organization that I want to help. I mean, I'm involved with a lot of code schools around the country. I do talks for them on a regular basis around resumes and interview prep and projects and things like that. Um, and then the other up and down thing for last week, uh, Friday, my my youngest got suspended from school, so I had to deal with that. And then while I was trying to deal with him being at home, I missed a meeting for a project kickoff thing I was going to do with Turing, called the Fundamentals Project. And so something that I've talked about on the stream here in the past is when you're looking for a job, how do you show kind of these core fundamental skills of being a web developer? Like, what does it mean to be a web developer? And you see a lot of these lists out there like, oh, you have to know the following 20 things, or you have to know the following 50 things, or are you even a dev kind of thing like that. They sort of pronounce these lists in a way that are like, oh, they're sort of gatekeeping, like you're not a dev unless you know these things. And I usually tell people like just avoid those lists, because by the time you work through that list, there's a whole other list. And a lot of them are like very specific, like you have to know React, you have to know TypeScript, you have to know MongoDB. It's like you don't have to know that technology. You have to know some kind of programming language, you have to know some kind of database, but it doesn't have to be those specific technologies. There are a lot of jobs out there that don't use React or Mongo. If you're a backend engineer, you don't need to know those things necessarily. Um, and so what I did is I put together a different kind of project called the Fundamentals Project. And I've got a link for it here, tig.fyi/project. See if you want to go check out this link. So the tig.fyi is just a short URL thing that I made for Tech Interview Guide. So techinterviewguide.fyi/project. And this is going to take you over a GitHub repo that I made for what I call the Fundamentals Project. And the idea of this Fundamentals Project is it's a solo effort project. It's something you're going to build that showcases I know how to do core functional work as a web developer. I know how to use a framework of some kind. I know how to, build out controllers. I know how to maybe build a view of presenting some data. I can do auth, like I can build a login scheme of some sort. That's going to need a database of some kind. If you're a backend developer, you should know how to like build or consume an API. If you're a front-end developer, you should know about CSS, HTML. And so while I try to make it as tech agnostic as possible, if you're going for a front-end role, yeah, you're going to need to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But aside from that, I stay very tech agnostic. If you're a backend developer, you should know how to talk to some kind of ORM that talks to some kind of database. It doesn't have to be Postgres. It doesn't have to be MySQL. It doesn't have to be Mongo. It doesn't have to be Cassandra. It doesn't have to be any particular technology. But it's meant to be a checklist of these are kind of the core fundamentals that you should know to be a web developer. You should know about auth. You should know about sessions. You should know about cookies. You should know about performance. But to what degree should you know? And so some of them are flagged as, I think these are pretty required skills. These ones are nice to have. And so I kind of built out the project that way, with it meant to be a solo project. So if you are interviewing, whether you're a new dev or a senior dev, you should be able to demonstrate these skills as a web developer. Now, one thing that I mentioned in that README is this is not a project you'll put on your resume, but it is a project that you'll talk about in your interviews. So you're not going to put it on your resume because you're not like, it's not like an end-to-end project where you're like building a bookstore and it happens to have all these other things. It's just, no, I'm building out this project to show you I know how to do auth. I know how to do, such and such. But it's still showing that you have these core capabilities as a web developer. Madeline, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. And yeah, I'll definitely send people over to your stream for sure. And so the idea with the Fundamentals Project is it's a solo effort. You're doing it yourself. I had some students ask recently, is like, is this a group effort? Should we like figure out which part of this that we're gonna build? It's like, no, you have to do it yourself. Otherwise, because what happens at a lot of these code schools and boot camps and whatever is you get on a group project where you're building some really big project together, but you're only working on a part of it. Like I only worked on the database. You only worked on the front end. Someone else worked on the testing. It's like, Okay, well, that means I've missed out on like 3 or 4 major parts of building that project, but I'm like really focused and specialized on this one part of the project. But when you're going for an interview, you have to know a little bit about all of those things. And so the idea of the fundamentals project that I put together is you're going and building those things yourself. And so it doesn't have to be like you don't have to build a theme around the project. You just have to start building a project and build off into it. Build a little login page where you put in a username and password, figure out how you're going to encrypt your passwords, whatever, like learn about enough proper security around, making good passwords and choices, or do OAuth, like log in with Google or something like that, like that you understand what that kind of thing is about, that you can actually demonstrate, what you're building out here. And so that's the idea of the fundamentals project. And again, kind of going back to the theme for the stream today is being prepared enough that if you need to interview tomorrow, you've got some of the stuff ready to go. You've got a project that you can talk to in the interview where they can say like, hey, tell me about a time you built out an auth scheme. You can say, oh, I've actually been working on this sort of skeleton project about, um, you know, putting all these fundamentals together. And one of those things was authentication. Here's how I build auth. I built this kind of table. I built this kind of controller. This is how I'm handling my passwords. Like you can speak to actually having done that yourself. But if you just got some big group project and you weren't the one building out the login and you get asked about that in the interview and you say, well, I didn't build that part of the project. Well, now you don't look like as good of a candidate because you didn't build that part. They want you to know that and you don't know that. And so it sort of hurts you a little bit in the interview by not having some of those skills. And so that was the idea of the fundamentals project is you are the one going and practicing building out these skills. And I think it's an important part of being prepared for interviewing. So keep your resume up to date, keep your skills sharp. The other idea with the fundamentals project is if you want to go apply for a job in a technology that you don't know yet, but as you're researching a company, you're like, oh, I really like what this company's doing, but they use a completely different tech stack. Well, great, go build that fundamentals project in that other tech stack. And now you're learning that other tech stack, but you already know how to do those fundamentals. Like I already know auth, I already know ORMs, I already know how to build an API, I know how to consume an API. I just have to go figure it out in this other language or this other framework so that I can target this other company to get a job there. You've already got those skills. You've already figured out the problem. Now you just have to figure out the implementation in some other tech stack. And so you can use that fundamentals project to go learn another technology because you've already built it. Now you just need to build it again in another tech. And so you can use the same fundamentals project in like to go learn some other database or go learn some other way of storing data or some other type of caching scheme or whatever. Like you can use that as kind of a launch pad then to go learn some other technology. But I think it starts by building that kind of project, like the fundamentals project, in a technology that you do know, that you are familiar with. Go build the project in that first so that you've solved the problem. You know how to actually implement that thing so that if you do want to go get a job in another technology, you know what to do. You just have to figure out how to actually implement it. And then when you go apply for that job, they can look at your resume and go, well, you don't have a background in C sharp. It's like, yeah, I've actually been building up this other project in C sharp. This is what I've been learning. This is what I'm capable of doing in the last 2 weeks, learning enough C sharp to implement authentication and using the MVC framework of .NET. This is how I'm building up my controllers and so on, my models, and this is how I'm talking to my database, and these are the libraries that I'm using. And I did that in 2 weeks. They're going to look at that and go, okay, you're capable of learning something quickly. You understand the fundamentals of it. You just have to learn the actual implementation, maybe some of the language and the syntax and whatever. But it goes to show what you're capable of learning in a short amount of time. And again, that's the kind of thing that companies really want to see. They want to know that you can get up and running quickly. That's providing value to them. Like, this is how quickly I can get up to speed on this other thing because I understand these fundamentals. So I would encourage everybody, like, go look through that fundamentals project. If you see anything about it that you'd like changed or something that you think is like a big missing gap. Like one thing that I meant to put on there, I don't recall if I put on there is like either a required skill or really nice to have skill for front end is UI UX, like the actual performance of your user interface. Can you account for slow load times with like little spinner graphics or something like that, or loading text in dynamically or something like that to make it appear like things are happening faster than it is? Um, I think that that's a pretty helpful skill if you're a front end developer. Is it a required skill? Maybe it's not required as an entry level role, but the more senior you are, I would say the more required that kind of thing would be. So um, if you want to look through that project, if you see things on there that are like, here's kind of a core fundamental skill, and again, not a technology like a specific technology, like, oh, people should know how to use Redis. It's like, nah. I mean, caching and database kind of lumped in together into a single thing. Like, it doesn't have to be Redis. You can do database work, you can do caching work, but it doesn't have to be a specific technology. I would leave the specific technologies for a specific job that you're trying to apply for. If you're applying for a specific job, then go learn those specific technologies by practicing, what you've built out in the fundamentals thing. So that would be my advice. So if anybody finds anything in there where you're like, oh, what if people, should people know about this or that? As far as like automation, should they learn about containerization, things like that. It's like, well, those are nice to have. Is it required to have? I mean, containerization's kind of starting to border on like that's almost a required skill. But I also look at the fundamentals thing as like a good entry level kind of project as well. And I would say containerization is not quite a required skill for an entry level role. It's a really nice to have, but maybe not a required skill for entry level. So that's the kind of thing. So if folks want to make pull requests and things like that to the project, I'm always happy to take feedback on stuff that I build. Always happy to take feedback and talk about it and take considerations. So if you want to make a pull request or even just file an issue on the GitHub project and say, what about this? What about that? I'm totally happy to consider those things. Cool. I'm gonna take a hydration break here for a moment. But yeah, I would say being prepared for a job hunt, I think, is going to be a pretty important part of being in the industry these days. Um, get a resume review, get the layout of your resume ready to go, build out that list of accomplishments. So if people are saying, if you get asked in an interview, like, hey, tell me the top 3 things that you've contributed to in the past year, that you've got things ready to go to be able to talk about and speak about. Like, practice those behavioral questions, practice technical questions. The newsletters that I write, they'll walk you through all of those things. So the sooner you can get subscribed to those kinds of things, and the sooner you start working through that kind of stuff, the better prepared you're going to be if you do need to go get a job, or if you just decide, like, you know what, I'm practiced enough, I'm ready to go start interviewing because I don't like my job and I really want to get another job. Then you're ready to go. You don't have to take time and go, I hate my job, now I want to start going and get ready, or I've lost my job, now I need to start getting ready. You're already ready. That's kind of the point I'm getting at today, is just be ready before you need to be ready. And you'll have a much shorter job hunt time after that. It's still going to take time to get a job. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to instantly get you a new job. But the more prepared you are, the shorter that job hunt is going to be. The more you network, the more you're reaching out to people on a regular basis and kind of building out and nurturing your network of people that you're in contact with, the better the chances are that you can get a referral for another job right away, and you're going to get up and running much, much faster. Cool. Well, what else is going on with everybody? Who else is hanging out in chat? If you're hanging out in chat, say hello. Let me know you're there. Always happy to hear from folks. But yeah, let me know if you're around. You can also ask questions anonymously if you like. I have an anonymous thing where you can go send a whisper over to the bot, and it'll show up in chat as an anonymous question. If the message that you send is too long, it'll probably just put something in chat saying your message is too long, make it shorter or whatever. Just send another whisper. Hey, Jay Brinker, good to see you. But yeah, always happy to take questions and feedback and all that kind of stuff. So bear with me a moment here. I need to go find a thing. Where did that thing go? There it is. Cool. Hey Jibbringer, how's your weekend been? Hope your day's going good so far. But yeah, if anyone else has interview types of questions or you've got questions about how to prepare, all that kind of stuff, I'm happy to take questions and stuff. You're doing good? All right. Good deal. Good deal. Been having a good weekend, kind of recouping from my week last week. Last week was a rough week. This week I'm going to be busy wrapping up some content. Next week I've got a talk to give for a major Python conference. Week after that I'm taking a vacation. So yeah, it's gonna be a good couple of weeks coming up. So yeah, I would say not to keep sounding like a broken record, but being prepared for an interview is something that I think is going to be a necessary part of our skill set nowadays as developers. Like just be ready for an interview. Keep your resume up to date. Keep a list of accomplishments. Keep it offline, like off of your company laptop or work account, or keep it off your Slack or work email or wherever you're keeping track of your notes. Make it private somewhere else. I've also heard of people getting locked out of like their Apple account or their Google account, and then they lose everything as well. So it might be worth like having multiple copies around different platforms and things like that too. Um, but really, that's up to you how you want to kind of build that stuff out and track those things. But like, you know, I've heard of people like they put all their stuff up on Google and then they do something to get Google mad at them. They shut off their account and then they have no backup at all. Like Google won't even give you a backup of your data if they kick you off their platform. That kind of thing's kind of rotten. I think Google should at least offer you a backup if they're not going to let you on their platform anymore. They should at least offer to give you a backup of the data that you had there. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. Yeah, just be prepared because you never know what's going to happen. Like I just had a friend lose their job on Friday, and now they've got to start their whole job hunt because they weren't expecting to lose their job, and they got to start their job hunt. But the more ready you are, where you're keeping your resume up to date, you got that list of accomplishments, you're practicing the tech questions and behavioral questions. Like, go subscribe to that email newsletter that I wrote. I've got behavior questions, I've got technical questions, I've got just general prep type of content that you can go subscribe to. It's totally free. There's no ads, there's no catch. Just need an email address and I'll send those things out to you as often as you want them. You can go in and you can set the pace of how quickly you want to get them, up to one per day per newsletter kind of thing. But if you want to spread them out and say, I only want one message every week, you can go in and you can set that pace yourself. So I built that out kind of on purpose for like how quickly or how delayed you want to get those messages. But being practiced on that stuff, I think is going to be important for sure. One thing that sort of stands out to me a little bit about my current job, like I said, I really like working at Postman. It's a good company. I got hired a little over a year ago. I had my 1 year anniversary at the end of January. But they don't give a raise on your anniversary. Everybody gets a raise, potentially. Everybody gets a salary review every May. Well, last year I was too new at the company to get a raise because they already brought me in. Like I already negotiated my salary up as high as I could before I got hired. And so when May came around, they're like, there's nothing really to review. You've only been here a couple of months. And so I know that my review is coming up in May this year. And I said, well, if I get a raise, is it going to be proactive back to my anniversary? And they said, no, it's every May, right? And so they're effectively getting an extra 5 months of work out of me where I'm not getting like a salary boost. And every company's a little bit different about that. I don't really hold that against the company, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if they only give me like a 1%, 2%, 3% kind of raise, that doesn't even keep up with inflation. And so, part of me is like, should I go interview? I don't want to go interview. I don't want to leave Postman. But if I go interview and I get another offer, then in May I can say, by the way, I had an offer come in for X amount of money. Can you match that at least so I can stay at Postman because I really want to stay here? You can use that as leverage, but it kind of puts them in a position of like I was saying earlier in the stream, if you're thinking about leaving, um, then it kind of puts them in a mindset and a position of like, well, you're already thinking about leaving, so bye. Like, um, if you're interviewing to get an offer just so you can make more money at your current job, it could backfire on you. So just be careful about doing that kind of thing. But if you're interviewing and you're getting another job offer, then good for you. You can go get another job and go get that 10% more, 15% more, 20% more. Go do what you got to do. Get paid because company doesn't care about you at the end of the day. Again, not to sound bleak about it, but at the end of the day, they're gonna use as much as they can of you for as little money as possible. And when they're done with you, they're done with you, and they'll hire somebody else after that. So, hey, Finite, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Go give Finite a follow. Let me do a little shout out here. Um, Finite has a really, really great channel. Love the overlays and all the not green screen stuff that you do on your channel. We've had Mark on the stream in the past just to hear about Mark's background and how Mark got involved in tech and things like that. I love having guests on the stream to talk about their backgrounds and stuff like that. So, but happy Sunday to you. Not a green screen for real. Yeah, I have a green screen. I've never actually used it. Even when I moved my whole basement around and I like set all this stuff up, I'm like, I could still put a green screen drop in behind me. Um, I just haven't found a good use for it because I like having the lights. I like seeing the lights back there. Um, but having a green screen would be helpful for doing some video recordings and stuff like that. So might need a resume review soon. All right. Well, let me know. Um, so yeah, well actually, if you want a resume review, you can fill out this form, and this will let you either request a private review or a public review. If you want a public review, I'll do it on the stream. If you want a private review, then we can do that offline. But speaking of Finite and doggos, Doggo wants to come say hello to everybody. So this is Riker. Yes, you are. You're a big pupper. Yes, you are. You're my big snuggle pupper, aren't you? Yeah. Hi. What you doing? What you doing? You're very handsome. Yes, you are. You're very handsome. What's going on? Is that Riker up there? Is that you on the TV? Look, it's you on the TV up there. Yeah, that's you. Okay, bye. He's just here for cookies. He's just begging for cookies. That's all. Aren't you? You want a cookie? You want a cookie? Do you? Yeah, is that what you want? Sit handsome. Sit handsome. Oh, yeah, he just wants cookies. That's all he wants. You don't love me. You just love the fact that I can reach the cookies and you can't. Oh, yeah. Yo, is that what you want? Is that what you want? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. I keep a giant bag of Milk-Bone cookies on my desk, so that way I'm at least guaranteed one puppy visit a day. So, but find out how's your weekend been? Hopefully your week's been good. Been loving the new shaders and stuff that you're building on OBS. That kind of stuff just blows my mind. I'm not nearly creative enough to figure out shaders and stuff like that. So I'm always really impressed by what you do. I don't know if Full Snable is still in chat or not, but Full Snable works on a lot of shaders. You two should get together on doing some stuff. Full Snable does a lot of really interesting shader animations and stuff like that too. But knocking out a ton of stuff around the house. Awesome, cool. Come over and do stuff around my house, would you? That would be fantastic. Shader's been a blast. The Mac one makes me giggle. Yeah, I saw the old Mac one on. I think you posted on Twitter. I think you had an animation of it on Twitter. Um, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to help you out with the resume review if you need it. Just yeah, you did tweet it. Yeah, I thought I saw it this morning when I woke up. Um, yeah, if you need help with the resume review, I'm totally down to help you out. So let me know. Yeah, let's see what else happened. Yeah, last week was a rough week. Like just tons of up and downs. Like every good thing that happened, something bad happened to kind of balance it back out. It's like, feel like Thanos where like everything had to happen in balance. Every good thing had a bad thing. Like my youngest turned 12, but then I lost an uncle. And then both kids went in the science fair Wednesday night and they both went in the competition side of it, but neither one of them won. And then, I heard from like three mentees that they got job offers, and then a friend of mine on Friday got laid off. And it's like everything good that happened, something bad happened. So I'm happy it was the weekend, and then this week I'm going to be really busy, just getting some content finished up at work, and then next week I've got a Python conference talk that I'm doing for the Python Web Conference. It's virtual, thankfully. I don't have to travel for it. I can do it from home. But it's also at like 8 in the morning. So, but it'll be a fun talk. It's a talk that I give on kind of comparing different types of APIs. So I'll be talking about RESTful APIs and then like WebSocket, asynchronous type APIs, GraphQL, and like how these sort of progressed and in from an API history point of view. And then talk about gRPC and kind of the pros and cons, like which ones should you use. And why some of them are good and some of them are bad and things like that. So it's a pretty good comparison of different API types. So I love nerding out on that kind of stuff. I'm also going to be giving a similar talk to that in San Francisco in a couple of weeks on the 21st. Google has a big like game developer conference going on in San Francisco, and Postman is part of a meetup that's going to happen in San Francisco on Tuesday, March 21st. And so I'm going to give a talk on similar sort of thing, like which API is going to be best for doing game development. So if you're building a game, what kind of API should you use? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some history of game design and using APIs in games, and which ones are performant, and other considerations like if you need to call third-party APIs as part of your game, like should you cache that stuff, or how long should you cache it, and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a good talk. I think that one's going to be a little bit shorter. The one I'm doing for the Python conference, I think is 45 minutes. And it's about an hour of content. So I'm going to have to kind of compress it a little bit. But I go into a lot of history on HTTP and, how HTTP 1 turned into version 2 and considerations that they're already starting to make now for HTTP 3. To get around some of the performance implications that they wanted to build in HTTP 2, and now they're realizing that, oh wait, that's also putting a burden on this or that, and so they're already talking about building out HTTP 3, but that's at least a decade away, so we'll see. So the Python conference should be public once it's done, yeah. The Google one that I'm doing, well, it's not really Google, like I'm not giving a talk for Google. But there's a Google conference going on, and then there's like a meetup, like just an evening meetup. But I think we got a couple hundred people registered for that already, so I'm a little nervous. Usually meetups don't have hundreds of people showing up, but it's effectively going to be a similar type of talk. But yeah, it's a fun little talk I came up with. I called it "Have We Rested Long Enough? Let's Go Have an API Adventure." And basically talking about like we all know REST. REST is pretty ubiquitous. There's a lot of tooling out there, but there are better, more performant APIs depending on what it is you're trying to do. So, you want to give some talks this year? Yeah, CFPs are really tricky. I find the trick with CFPs is coming up with a really catchy title and a really catchy abstract. The talk itself doesn't have to be like super interesting. I mean, it helps to get called back later, but I find just having a really catchy title is what's going to get their attention, and they'll be a little more intrigued to hear what your talk is going to be about. But there are actually a couple of Twitter accounts, Mark, that I can recommend to you where they're literally putting out like a dozen CFPs a day kind of thing of like, this one's closing in 24 hours, this one's closing, here or there. Some of them will do virtual, some of them will cover your travel and things like that. So it's kind of a numbers game at that point, but like one of them that I heard back from, for example, was it's a group called Agile on the Beach, and I proposed this talk that it's a workshop that I do about building up mock servers to kind of raise productivity from a team point of view, and they're like, yeah, that wasn't really like related to Agile, and I'm like, well, part of Agile is the planning and the feedback process, and that all goes into building an API contract and productivity boosts and so on. But they actually gave me really good feedback on here's how you can change your pitch and whatever to maybe get accepted next year, kind of thing. So some of them are willing to give you feedback if you ask for it, and some of them are like, oh, if you're a first-time speaker, they'll take that into consideration. But yeah, let me go get those. Let me get those things for you right now, and I'll drop those in chat for you. So there's 2 Twitter accounts that I follow that are just constantly putting out CFP possibilities here. So here's the first one, and here is the second one. So I follow both of these and actually put them on notification on my Twitter to say, like, tell me about everything that they tweet. And some, like, my Twitter's just constantly blown up on my phone. But they're worldwide as well. And some of them will cover travel. So if you want to go exotic places, there's a lot of them happening over in the UK right now. But some of them will cover your travel. I know you're not employed by anybody, but if you work for a company who's willing to, like, sponsor your travel or whatever to get you over to a talk, but some of these talks will actually help cover like a portion or all of your travel expenses if you get accepted as a speaker. But these folks are like constantly putting stuff out all the time. Like I use sites like callforpapers.com or .io or something like that. But a lot of those aren't necessarily technology related. Like there's a lot of like medical conferences and stuff like that. But these 2 Twitter accounts are specifically around tech. So you have a budget of very little. I mean, watch for like the virtual events and whatever, like getting started with the virtual events and getting those recorded and like build up a portfolio of those. Like if you go to techinterview.guide, and I think I've got a thing on the menu there for like speaking events or whatever. And I started actually listing out like, these are the podcasts that I'm on. Here's YouTube things that I've been a part of. Keep that list of accomplishments. So kind of like I'm saying with the resume, like whenever you get a job, you're constantly adding to your resume all the time. Don't wait until you lose the job to go build a new resume. Like start building a resume now. But you can start also building out a portfolio of, these are talks that I've been involved in. These are blog posts that I've written. Here's, like blog posts that I've written on other people's websites, for example. Like I've done things for like builtincolorado.com and the Muse and things like that. Like I've contributed to other like major types of like hiring, recruiting type of websites. You got to keep track of that stuff, otherwise you forget. So like I've been quoted in articles and things like that. So I try to keep a list of all that stuff running all the time. So there's a local boot camp that has a speaker day thing about submitting to. Yeah, totally do that. It's small, or get me in the front. Yep. That's exactly how you get started. Or even just go to local meetups. Just find any kind of tech meetup, because they're always looking for speakers. Like tech meetups are constantly hoping that they can find someone to give a talk. So whether even if it's like a 5 or 10 minute talk of, this is my experience with such and such, you're not necessarily getting up to give a talk on here's how to do a thing, blah, 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 because then you get a lot of people arguing over why you didn't do it right. But like one thing that I think could be helpful, Mark, is talk about like how you do things with shaders and OBS and things like that. Like put together little tutorial videos or something like that. I think those kinds of things would be really helpful, just to show people like, this is what's possible. Here's how quick and easy it is to actually put these kinds of things together. A couple of tools, using Photoshop or After Effects or whatever. Here's how quickly you can kind of put this thing together, do a quick little demo of it. There are a lot of people out there that want to get into streaming and they want those kinds of cool effects or whatever. They would love to learn that kind of stuff. So starting out like from the very beginning, here's how to get started. These are the tools that you need. Or if you could spin it in a way that it's kind of tool agnostic, that could be beneficial as well. But if you're doing things with like Adobe After Effects, I bet Adobe's got all kinds of like speaking engagement things that you could go do. Like, maybe Adobe has like a CFP kind of thing. Go give a talk on here's how I use After Effects to make all these, background things and do my Thanos and, the Mac, shaders and whatever. And like talk about how you put those things together and how you tie them into OBS or whatever. Like people would eat that stuff up. So yeah, I would reach out to Adobe and see, if Adobe has speaking opportunities for any kind of conferences that they're hosting. I bet they would love to have you for that kind of stuff. So, hey, Double Woot, good to see you in chat. First time chat. Always love new folks dropping by. Let me know how you found the stream. Always happy to have new people. Feel free to give me a follow if you like. On Sundays, I help people out with tech interview advice and career advice, how to get ready for a job hunt, help with company research, resume reviews, that kind of stuff. Tuesdays, I tend to do more coding. And then Thursdays, I do more maker stuff where I get into like 3D printing and painting. Picked up a laser engraver lately, so I've been tinkering with the laser engraver and stuff. We met a decade ago at Google I/O. Been following my account ever since. We met at Google I/O. Now I'm curious who you are. Send me a message on like any of the socials. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. If you've been following me, you know how to get in contact with me. But wow, Google I/O. Now I got Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like there's a name I haven't heard in a long time. I miss going to Google I/O. Google I/O was like a really fun thing to go to back in the day. When they started doing them in Mountain View in the like outside kind of venue, and people were getting like cooked in the sun because it was crazy hot in May. It was like 100 degrees outside, and people were getting sunburned. I stopped going when they left the Moscone Center. I stopped going to Google I/O, but it was so much fun. I went like 4 years in a row, and it was so much fun going to like just hearing the speaking engagements and the code labs and all that kind of stuff. Google I/O was always a lot of fun. Not just to hear like the latest and greatest and whatever, but like being part of a giant crowd, talking about some new, Android feature or Google feature. Like it's fun being in the crowd for those things. And I imagine it would be the same, if you're, you know, big Apple fan, you go to WWDC, or you're a big Microsoft fan, you go to their big conference or whatever. Like being part of the crowd, like there's this huge energy that goes on. But I always really enjoyed Google I/O for the code labs, where you could go actually talk to the DevRel team and like sit down and like learn some new technology. They would walk you through a workshop of some kind. Like I had a lot of fun doing those. That was a lot of fun for me. Um, I missed. So they did them for a couple of years, and then one year they stopped doing the live code labs, and it was just kind of like a little workshop where they had like a bunch of Chromebooks, and you just sit down and you like work through the code. And if you had questions, they would have people kind of wandering around that could help. But it was sort of a self-directed, like here's a whole list of things that you can kind of work through. And I kind of missed doing it after that. I missed, kind of the live, like, hey, we're gonna walk you through how to do this one thing. That was always a lot more fun. Oh my gosh, GB3, yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, we haven't chatted in a minute for sure. I got to get you on the stream. So one of the things that I've done on the live stream here is I've actually had people. I actually did reach out to you at one point and said like I want to have some engineering management or whatever on the stream. I think I remember reaching out to you maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, saying like, hey, well, it'd be about a year and a half ago, around getting some engineering managers and stuff like that on the stream. I'd love to have you on the stream sometime. Just chat about like your journey in tech and things like that. I think it's helpful just to kind of hear like how different people go through different ways of getting into technology and so on. Like Finance Singularity, who's hanging out in chat. We had Mark on the stream a while back, and we chatted about kind of Mark's journey into tech and how, as a contractor, building up the software and basically being paid like an annual salary from this company to work on open source was like really fantastic. Um, so yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll have to have you on the stream at some point. So that's going to be more of the Sunday streams is like doing more of the career prep and stuff like that. But yeah, if you ever want to hang out on the stream, let me know. Good to hear from you, man. Hope things are good for you. You still in SoCal? I think you were. I forget if it was LA or San Diego. The last we chatted, I thought you were San Diego, but I could be wrong on that. I almost got out to TwitchCon last year. I've got a whole bunch of folks around San Diego. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. 50 plus digital projects a year. Dang, man, you've really been growing. So I knew Double Woot like way back in the day. Gosh, that was a decade ago, wasn't it? I went to Google I/O 2011, 12, 13, and 14. Wow, that was a decade ago. That was so bizarre to think it's been that long. Um, but yeah, I remember bumping into you at Google I/O, and we sort of stayed in contact. I don't think we ever really hung out in person outside of Google I/O, but yeah, we definitely kept in contact and had a lot of video calls and stuff like that. So good to hear from you, man. Thanks for dropping by. We're getting old. I got you beat by a couple of years there, I think, but yeah, we've seen some things for sure. So one of the things I was kind of talking about on the stream today is like be ready because you never know what's going to happen with companies and layoffs and things like that. Maybe not as applicable for you because you run your own shop, um, but for people who are working for other employers, like a friend of mine just got laid off on Friday, wasn't expected. Now they're like, shoot, I got to start a job hunt. It's like, well, let me know how I can help you out if you want resume reviews, mock interviews, like all that stuff. Like, totally happy to help you out. So like keeping a resume up to date, keeping a list of accomplishments up to date, so that if you do need to interview, you've got that ready to go. Be practiced, work on projects and things like that that kind of show your fundamental skills of whatever kind of development you're doing, whether you're front end dev, back end dev, full stack. Like, I started kind of piecing together the idea of like a what I call a fundamentals project, where you can show the fundamental skills that you have as a developer. You know about auth, you know about caching, you know about ORMs. Like, it's not tied to a specific technology, like Java, or you know .NET or something like that. Like, it's tech agnostic as much as possible, except for the front end. You kind of have to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but aside from that, just having some fundamental skills of, these are the skills you should know to be a web developer at some level, and just talking through those kinds of things. So I think being able to build out a project like that, so that later on you can say, okay, this is these are the core skills that I have. This is what I'm practiced on, and then you're the one building out that project, right? But a lot of the code schools and boot camps and stuff that I help around the country, they're like, well, their capstone project covers a lot of this stuff. It's like, yeah, but on that capstone project, it's a group of 4 to 10 people, and you get to work on like a piece of that. And so you don't necessarily know how all of that got built. Like, maybe theoretically you do, but from a practical skills point of view, you weren't the one that did that part of the project. And so the idea of this fundamentals project is you are the one going and building all of these things. And yeah, it might take some time to go build, but now you know that you're the one that has practiced that. You have that hands-on skill, and that brings a lot more value to you as a candidate when you're going and applying for that job. So there are many parallels of how you grow and scale a business as well. Yeah, I imagine there would be. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So good to hear from you, man. Thanks for dropping by. Wow, it's been a minute. Yeah, I met a handful of folks through Google I/O that I kept in contact with over the years. There was a guy from Spain that I kept in contact with for the longest time. Um, I've got his Twitter handle in my head, but I can't think of his real name. His real name is Raul. It took me it took me a minute just to remember his name, but yeah, just meeting a lot of people through Google I/O is a really good time just to meet like in a massive crowd of people. You're just standing in line to get into the building, or you're standing in line to like go to a talk, and you're just chatting with people around you and find out where everybody's from and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun for sure. Yeah, I'll send you an email this week or next week. This week's going to be a little busy with some content creation, but I'll have some time next week if you want to do a virtual coffee. Let me know. So thanks for dropping by, man. Good to hear from you. That was fun. It's always fun catching up with people that drop by. So let's see what else is going on. Yeah, if you're hanging out in chat, let me know that you're there. Throw me a follow if you're not following the channel. Give me a follow. I also hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now I just need to get the actual viewership up a little bit by about 2,000 hours. So if you could help me out and go check out my YouTube channel and go find some of the playlists and just play them in the background. Just mute the tab and just put it on 2x speed or whatever, and just play through like a bunch of the playlists. That would be really helpful. There's a playlist for like the full session episodes. that I add all the full sessions to. If you just could throw that on the background for me, that would be a huge help. Once I unlock 4,000 hours plus those subscribers that I have, it kind of unlocks like a bunch of other stuff on YouTube for me. So I really need to get the hours viewed up, because they do like the hours viewed over a period of time. So I need a bunch of people to do that soon, so it can, well, not soon, but like over the next month or so. If people can just throw this stuff on in the background, that would be a huge help for me. So just go find that one playlist and then just start playing them all from there. That would be really beneficial. Um, but yeah, they're all like 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour streams, so you don't necessarily have to like sit there and actually watch them, but just put it on a tab in the background, just let it run. As long as you have unlimited data on your ISP, so like you might want to turn the resolution all the way down to like 144p, and just put them on in the background. That way, it doesn't eat up too much of your bandwidth at home. But don't want to cost anybody money for doing this. But if you can help me out with that, I'd appreciate it. Just to get the viewership up. I think I still need about 2,000 hours of video watched over like I think it's like a 3-month or 6-month timeline now. I want to go check. It's over the past year. So they're looking at the viewership over the past year, and you need to have 4,000 hours over a year. I'm up at 1,712 watch hours, so I'm less than halfway there. Either that, or I need to build a bunch of short videos that get 10 million views in 90 days. I'm probably not going to do that. But yeah, if I can get to the 4,000 hours viewed in a year, that would be really beneficial. So if you can throw on some of those playlists and just let the whole playlist thing go, that would be a huge benefit. I hear YouTube Shorts is the way to go. Yeah, it is. I'm just really bad at coming up with short content, because a lot of the explanations that I want to do take more than a minute of, here's how to build a resume and so on. I think the thing that holds me back from the 1 minute video content is like, you can make it sort of splashy. It's like, here's how to build a great resume in a minute, and talk about like, these are the order that you should put things in, and this is how you show your value to the company. But that's ultimately the goal of building the resume, is to show your value to the company. I'm not like hyped up like the Dylan Hollis, doing the old timey recipes and things like that. I'm not that charismatic on camera. So it's hard for me to like be like super enthusiastic and like go do the thing, but it's tough. But it is definitely the way to go. That and TikTok and stuff like that. But I can't stand TikTok. Their privacy things are like driving me up the wall. As far as like what their app has access to on your phone and stuff like that, I just don't want to use TikTok at all. And I think the last I checked, you can't post anything to TikTok on the desktop app. You have to use their phone. So I want to like find an old burner phone that I can just put that app on. It's the only thing on that phone. It's the only thing I use it for, is to, I'll copy videos over and then like post it from that TikTok account or something like that. But I'm bad at coming up with like 1 minute content. I'm good at like 5 minute kind of questions and answer kind of thing. Like I've got a lot of those playlists on YouTube as well, of like tech interview prep questions and resume questions, where I spend like 5 or 10 minutes exploring a topic and like give a decently concise answer. But to try to sum everything up in like 60 seconds or less is tough to do. It's a tough thing to do. But the laser engraver that I got, I actually have to make a bunch of videos for them. So I've been working on some short videos and so on for them, because I'm kind of under obligation to do that. I actually have to finish editing a video for them today, for the unboxing and stuff like that. Otherwise, I got to pack it up and ship it back to them, and I don't want to have to deal with shipping it back. So I basically negotiated with them to keep the laser engraver, but I have to make a bunch of videos for them now. So it is such a game. That's partly why I haven't done a dive into YouTube. That and my inability to be happy with anything I've had. Yeah, and I don't want to hire somebody. I actually had somebody come by and we chatted a little bit about doing edits and things like that. And they wanted, like, I'm totally okay with paying people for their time and paying people what they're worth and not trying to undercut them. But this person wanted like $100 an hour kind of thing to edit video, and they had to watch the whole thing in order to edit it. And I'm like, so I got to pay you $300 to watch a 3-hour video, to trim it down to an hour, and all the time you're going to take to actually figure out which parts to actually trim down to an hour. It was going to be like $800 or $900 per video. I'm like, I'd make no money on this. Like I'm not gonna spend $1,000 per live stream to make these better, when I don't generate income from this. I do this just kind of out of the goodness of my heart to help the community. Like, I don't have that kind of money. If I won the lottery, then yeah, by all means, I'd have a whole editing team and whatever. But yeah, I'm a bit of a perfectionist too when it comes to that kind of stuff, Mark. So, hey, Antonio, good to see you. Good to see you in chat as well. But yeah, it's a huge expense to make enough money to pay an editor for their time, because you want to pay people what they're worth. I don't want to tell people like, oh, help me edit this thing, and I can give you like $50 every time you do it. That's more my budget, but I mean, what are you going to get for $50? No one else is going to be that altruistic, to say, oh yeah, I'll just totally help you out for free. Like that's, I wouldn't want that to happen. I wouldn't want someone to say like, I'll do that for free for you. Like I would feel like that's taking advantage of them. So makes sense when you're getting several 100,000 views early on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You want to follow me on GitHub? I'm just Ian Douglas on GitHub, not the 736, but just Ian Douglas on GitHub. So yeah, just github.com/Ian Douglas. Finite's on there too. Finite's got a bunch of code on there too. Finite, if you want to drop the link to your GitHub. Finite's got a bunch of really cool code if you're into streaming and stuff like that. You learn Git, awesome, that's great. Git is a very powerful tool to use. Knowing some of the basics is going to be really important. Learning a lot about GitHub, good deal. Yeah, learning how to branch, how to merge things in, and just keeping a history of the kinds of things that you do. Nowadays, I tend to use it more for like disaster recovery purposes. Like if I lose my code, I know I can always go to GitHub and get a fresh copy. Or if I decide to just scrap whatever I'm doing because something went really badly, I know I can just delete it and I can always pull down another copy from GitHub. The nice thing about Git and GitHub is once you commit code, you've never really lost it. Even if you overwrite that code later on, if you store it in Git and put it up on GitHub and you ever need to recover it, there's always a way to go back and recover it. So that's the nice thing about using Git for that kind of stuff, is you've always got a way to get it back if you need to. I'm curious, can you tell me what kind of help people can get here? Yeah. So I help people out with a lot of interview advice. So if you're going for an interview for a job, I've got, for example, I've got some email newsletters that you can go subscribe to. One is just behavioral questions. So in an interview, they'll ask you questions like, tell me about a time where you were on a team and communication didn't work out well. Like, what kinds of questions can you expect to be asked? But what I do in my newsletters is I don't tell you how to answer it perfectly. What I do is I tell you why we ask that question in the first place, so that you can figure out yourself how to come up with your best answer. Because to say like, here's how you answer this question perfectly, well, that's great from my background and my experience, but that's not necessarily going to be your experience. And so my answer doesn't necessarily help you. And so in these newsletters, I don't tell you how to answer the question perfectly. I tell you why we ask that question in the first place and the kinds of things we want to hear in your answer, but I don't tell you how to answer it perfectly. So there's a difference there. So I've got one on just behavioral questions, one on just technical questions, and then I've got a third newsletter that's just general preparation. Like, how do you put a resume together? How do you do company research? What's a reasonable take-home assignment, versus an unreasonable amount of time to spend on something? How can you talk to companies about, hey, do I really have to spend 40 hours building this, or can you evaluate what I've already got on my GitHub? Like, how do you talk to companies about that kind of stuff? How do you, sort of speed up the process? How do you get referrals and things like that? So that's the general newsletter, and then the technical and behavioral ones. I'm also working on a separate one. I've been working on it for like a year now on just the preparation side of it, like going into more detail on building out a resume, building out a cover letter, building out projects and things like that, and actually preparing for the interview. How do you do leak code properly and so on? I've got some YouTube videos that you can go check out as well on leak code if you're going to practice leak code style, interview questions. There's a way to do it a little bit smarter. And I think it's a little bit of a novel approach. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to go grind on leak code. I'm going to do like 500 problems on leak code. And one of the things that Finite Singularity, who's hanging out in chat, what Mark and I talked about when we had Mark on the stream is, does grinding on leak code really make you a better programmer? And our answer is no. It doesn't actually make you a better programmer. It makes you a better problem solver, but that doesn't necessarily make you a better developer for getting a role. Loving Cutie 21, thanks for the follow. Interesting username. And Chuck8472, thanks for the follow as well. Appreciate new follows. Feel free to let me know in chat how you found the channel. Always happy to hear from new folks. And so the idea with leak code is that, like in the tech industry, there's always going to be some amount of demonstration that you're going to have to do to demonstrate that you can actually do the job. So they're going to ask you to write some code. They're going to ask you to do some problem solving and things like that. But there's a better way to do leak code where you don't have to grind 500 problems, 900 problems. Like you don't have to do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Unless you've got that kind of time, then by all means, spend your time however you like. But I think there's a better way of doing it where you're really understanding how to solve the problem and the different kinds of algorithms that you can use to solve different kinds of problems. That's really what leak code is about. Is here's a novel kind of problem. How am I going to solve it? What kind of algorithm am I going to choose? And then from there, having those algorithms practiced enough that you're like, oh, this sounds like a backtracking problem. Here's how I do backtracking. And now you solve the problem. That's really the expectation in an interview, is that you can identify what the problem is about and how you want to solve the problem. But a lot of people, they're just grinding on leak code, just, I think, for a numbers thing of like, look at me, I did 1,200 leak code problems. It's like, okay, great. So you're going to be really good at leak code problems, but can you actually build an application? Because that's a whole different type of skill. It's a whole different way of doing programming. And so by spending less time on leak code and doing that a little bit smarter around learning those algorithms, you can spend other time actually building out the actual practical type of work that a company's actually going to hire you for. They're not hiring you to write leak code. They're hiring you to build web apps. They're hiring you to build APIs. They're hiring you to build mobile applications and so on. Leak code will help you with the novel problem solving aspect of that. But at the end of the day, grinding on leak code doesn't make you a better programmer in the long run. It helps you with the problem solving, but not necessarily, like, unless you're really going in and looking at the fine tuned, you know, your code runs better than 99% of everybody else that has submitted code. If you're going for those kinds of numbers, then that's a little different because you're doing it specifically with optimizations in mind. But if you're just trying to solve the problem to move on to the next one, there's a smarter way of doing leak code. So go watch those YouTube videos. It's like math. Once you understand how it works, you just change the numbers. Kind of, yeah. I mean, there are really only a handful of algorithms out there that you really need to know to get through a lot of these leak code problems. And a lot of it comes down to really identifying what kind of problem is it. Is this a backtracking problem? Is it a depth first search kind of problem? Is it a heap type of problem? You know, do I use an array for this? Do I use a hash for that? How best do I use these things? Like, there might be several solutions. There just might be, one's a little bit better for one reason or another. Maybe it uses less CPU but more RAM. One uses less RAM but more CPU. These are trade-offs that we make as software developers all the time. But by understanding what these algorithms are and how the algorithms actually work, you make better decisions. And that's what a company's hiring you for, is to know that what you're studying and what you're practicing actually makes sense. So there's a smarter way of doing leak code. But at the end of the day, it's something that's always going to be part of the demonstration aspect of a technical interview. So that's like one thing I do. I also do resume reviews. So if you have a resume and you want a review, you're welcome to drop that in. I've got a form here that you can fill out. Whip, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Whip has been by the stream a ton, so I make a little sound effect for Whip coming by. So I help with resume reviews. If you want a public review, I'll do them on the stream. If you want a private review, then I can, we can coordinate that. I usually, depending on kind of your circumstance in life, if you're a new student or you're unemployed, I generally don't ask for money. But if you are employed and you just want a review, I usually ask for money. But that money all goes into the fundraiser. So if you're watching on Twitch, you see that we're raising money for a group right now called Unloop. and it's a group who is it's a nonprofit charitable group who is working to help people who have been incarcerated that have been released from prison go get a job in tech. And so they're specifically working with people who have been incarcerated. I'm a big fan of diversity in tech. I'm a big fan of second chances. And I think that this was a good blend of those skills. And so we're raising money for them. There's a community goal right now that's marked at $2,000, but I match all the incoming donations. And so whatever money you donate, I'm going to match. So I think we've had, $125 or so donated so far. I'm going to match all of that. So when the community hits $1,000, I basically chip in $1,000 as well. And then when we hit that goal of $2,000, we do some kind of big giveaway here on the stream. And then I've got another charitable group that we're going to do after that. And that one's going to be helping Black and Latino kids get into technology education to prepare for eventual STEM type of career. So that's going to be after Unloop. When we finish that goal, we'll do another giveaway and so on. So we got lots of giveaways coming up. We've got another big one on March 14th. So 3/14 is kind of Pi Day, as we call it, 3.14. And I'm going to be streaming that whole afternoon. So it's going to be not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday. And I'm going to enable that little drop game that if you hang out here on Twitch and you see the little drop, parachute things that sort of fall, I'm going to enable drop on my stream. And I'm going to stream for that whole afternoon. And if you can drop and land for 3.14, I'm going to buy you a Raspberry Pi. And so we're just going to stream that whole afternoon. And if you can drop for 3.14, then we'll give away a Raspberry Pi, and like a top-end Raspberry Pi. So like the 4 gigabyte model. So we're going to be doing that a week from Tuesday. So come back, definitely check that out. I'll be streaming for 3 hours and 14 minutes. That's my target. We'll stream for 3/14 on 3/14, and hopefully give away some, at least one Raspberry Pi. Hopefully, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of a random chance of doing the drop, but if you can land for 3.14, it's a scale of 0 to 100. And most streamers will say, oh, if you drop for like 99 or higher, or you drop less than 1%, then you get like a free subscription or something like that. But I'm going to say, if you can drop for exactly 3.14, I'm going to buy you a Raspberry Pi. So it should be fun. How about 31/4? Oh, well, April doesn't have 31 days. So it'd be really hard to stream on April 31st because there is no April 31st. Canty One Pure, good to see you in chat. Thanks for dropping by as well. So yeah, it'll be pretty fun from a streaming point of view, just to have different people drop by and play the drop game. But what else did I miss? What about AI? Should I be scared to go now for full stack developer, since many people say AI will destroy these jobs? It's not going to destroy those jobs. AI is not going, I think as programmers, we have the best position because AI is like, it's pulling samples of programming from around the internet to answer questions about like, how do I do a thing? But I don't think any good reputable company is not going to replace programmers with things like ChatGPT, because you don't know where that code's coming from. And a lot of companies don't want the liability of having a programmer come back and say, hey, your AI stole my code, you owe me money, or my license said that my code is open source, therefore your code also has to be open source. So a lot of companies are not going to be using AI for production level code. When I use AI here at home, I use tools like ChatGPT. I'll be open and honest about that. I use ChatGPT, but I use it for kind of the inspiration of what it is I want to build as a developer. Like, how do I do this thing with, how do I build this kind of index in Postgres? Or how do I, how can I best speed up, this block of code? Like the most recent thing I did with ChatGPT, one of my kids did a science fair project last week on what can we find in 10 billion digits of pi? And so we found some software that generated 10 billion digits of pi. And then he sat down and he wrote a bunch of Python code to actually look through, look for different patterns of numbers and so on, to kind of look through the questions that he had about, can we find this kind of pattern of number, or can we find this or that? And he had things like, how many numbers should I have to look through to find all 2-digit numbers? or all 3-digit numbers, all 4-digit numbers. And he would sit down and he wrote out all his hypotheses, and then he wrote some Python code to actually loop through these things and actually go find all the numbers and then test whether his hypothesis was right. And so he wrote all these little mini search engines to go look through 10 billion digits of pi. And one of the things that he wanted to do was a live demo of type in any number and it'll tell you whether it finds it in pi. But searching through 10 billion digits of pi is kind of time consuming if you only do a single pass. And so I used ChatGPT to say, hey, how can I do this in a multi-threaded kind of way in Python to like split up the work? And it gave me some choices, and I tried it on my Windows PC, and it didn't work because Windows Python doesn't work the same as Mac and Linux as far as like threading things properly. And so instead, I used ChatGPT saying, okay, ChatGPT, let's do this in C#. How can I do this in C# in a multi-threaded kind of way? And I got some inspiration, and I basically sat down and I wrote some C# code based on that inspiration to kind of determine, okay, well, if we break that whole 10 gigabytes into several different files, then you can have these pointers kind of seek through all these files all at the same time, do it in a threaded way, join all those threads and figure out whether it was found or not. And we got to the point where we can search 10 billion digits of pi in less than 3 seconds and tell you whether or not a given number is found in a range of 10 billion digits of pi. So like doing fun stuff like that by using AI for the inspiration, but not for the actual code, because at the end of the day, ChatGPT had no idea what I meant when I said, how can I search 10 billion digits of pi in a memory efficient, CPU efficient way? Like, it had no answer, or not a clear answer of like, oh, here's how to do this exact thing. And so I wouldn't worry too much about AI taking over our jobs. Someone has to code those bots and code the learning stuff in the first place. So I think we as programmers are in the best position to not have to worry too much about our jobs being replaced by AI, because someone's got to build the AI, and that's going to be us, right? My dad, I mean, before he passed away a couple of years ago, he used to say like, oh, the robots are coming for our jobs. And it's like, yeah, but somebody's got to program those robots, so my job is safe. Because, that's what we do, right? I mean, that's what we do as programmers. Like, I can literally program little motors and whatever to literally physically program a robot to like go do something. Like, if I really had to, I could sit down and I could figure that out. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think we're still a far ways off from somebody automating AI enough to completely do away with our jobs. I think we're still a long way off. I think there's still a lot of inherent bias in how these training models are made. That's why we need a lot of diversity in tech so that these training models are actually done more effectively. I'll give you another good example of this. Amazon did an experiment years ago where they were trying to use AI, where they were training it on resumes. They were giving it a bunch of resumes and saying, learn from these resumes so that when people go apply for these jobs, we can have this AI thing look through the resumes and try to find the best candidates for us to go interview. And it actually really backfired on them, because what they did is they said, who are our top performers in the company? Let's go get their resumes, and we're going to put those resumes into the training model because we want to hire people like these top people. Well, all the top people were male because, that's just kind of how the tech industry was at the time. It was heavily male, heavily predominantly white. And so the resumes it was learning from, it was actually screening for white males. And so ethnic people were applying and they were getting rejected. Non-males were applying and they were getting rejected because their resumes didn't match exactly the kinds of backgrounds that the high-performing white men that the company had. And so it actually really backfired on them because of the training data that they were feeding into it. And so this is an inherent bias when you start building AI, is who's building the training and who's actually like providing the data. Like, is the data unbiased? Is the training unbiased? Because that's the only way you're going to get a truly unbiased output from doing something with AI. So this is also part of why I'm a big champion of diversity in tech, because if it's all men, if it's all white people, then you're going to have a very skewed way of why you're building things the way you do. Back in the 70s and 80s, when they were building airbags for cars, they were completely baffled why women and children were being incredibly hurt or killed by airbags in the cars. It's because the only people they were saving were the people who were like the designers, 6 foot tall, 200 plus pound men. They were the only ones being saved by airbags. because they were the ones designing the airbags. They didn't think that, we should probably design these to keep smaller people safe. And so by not having a diverse group of people work on the product, they made a harmful product. And then they decided, oh, wait, we need to change this. And now you get these cars with like full canopy airbags and whatever, and like airbags all over the place that help keep people safe. Yeah, people still get hurt by airbags, but not nearly as much as they did back in the 1980s. So that's why we need diversity in tech. That's why I'm a huge champion of diversity. We need to have that diversity. Otherwise, we're not building the best product we could. Anyway, get off that soapbox. So when it comes to AI, there's a lot that still needs to go into building out AI. I wouldn't worry too much about, like it's not going to take over our jobs right now. Finance says, I built 3 different shaders this weekend. Normally I can build a shader in 2 to 3 hours. I was able to build 3 in about the same time by using ChatGPT to help out with initial code. Cool. Didn't give me the full code I needed, but it was a fantastic start and it got me moving in the right direction much earlier. Yeah, that's awesome. And so I do the same thing. I use it for inspiration, but I'm not just going to copy and paste that code. I think that that's a highly irresponsible thing to do as a developer. If you're asked to write code for a company and you use a tool like ChatGPT or some kind of AI tool like Google Copilot even to go build code, and you're like copying and pasting that code, you're putting your company at risk. The company wants to know that you know how to write that code. If you need inspiration, fine, use it as inspiration. Like I have Google Copilot. I pay for Google Copilot. I think it's a great tool, but I would never, ever copy and paste code from Google Copilot into actual code that I would submit for my company. I would never do that, because where's it getting the code from? It's going out and it's scraping the internet. It's looking through other GitHub repositories, and you don't know whether the license of that code is compatible with the license that your company is trying to build. There could be restrictions on, if you use my code in your product and my code is open source, then your product also has to be open source. There are licenses where you are legally bound to make your product open source. I think it's a matter of time before we start seeing lawsuits where some company has to release all their source code because they used some AI thing that went and scraped somebody else's open source code. And now they have to open source their code. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of that stuff happening. Because people are going to be irresponsible with that. So use it as inspiration, but don't use it to actually write your code. It says drop for 31.4 and get 10 Raspberry Pis. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I think I'll go with 1 Raspberry Pi. So those things are a little spendy. Bob does work. Thanks for the follow. Thanks for dropping by. I'm always interested in finding out how people find the channel, but thanks for the follow. Appreciate the follows. I've also got a YouTube channel if you want to go check that out. I got a button here somewhere, YouTube. So on my YouTube, I got lots of playlists of just different interview prep and career prep kinds of questions and answers and resume reviews and all kind of stuff on the channel. If you want a public resume review here on the channel, just drop me a note in chat. Let me know that you're going to submit a resume, and I'm happy to do resume reviews publicly. If you want a private one, again, depending on sort of your circumstance in life, if you're unemployed, then I won't ask for money. If you are employed and you just want help with a resume review, I usually ask for a little bit of money for it, and that's all in the form. You can find out about it. That basically it all goes into the fundraiser that we have. I don't keep any money that I make as a streamer. So the pre-roll ad that you had to sit through on here, all that money goes back into the diversity and tech fundraiser. So that's all part of me matching whatever the community is raising. So there's a $2,000 goal right now. I'm only expecting the community to hit half of that, and then I'm going to match the other half. And that other half comes out of the money that I make doing resume reviews, doing mock interviews. The money that I make as a streamer, the little bit of ad revenue and subs and bits and all that kind of stuff, that all goes into that fundraiser. So I don't keep any money that I make as a streamer. It all goes back into the community. So you can do !money, and it'll give you a link, and I kind of show the transparency there of like how much money I make as a streamer and so on. I'm fully transparent with that because I don't do this to make money. So feel free to go take a look at that if you like. There's also !help if you want to see all the different commands. There's like exclamation joke and stuff like that if you want a dad joke and so on. I've been building out a lot of commands and stuff like that recently. 12-year-old wants to come and say hi to everybody. Hello, 12. He's 12 now. Another year, you're a teenager. Can't believe that. One of the things that we did on Thursday Speaking of the laser engraver and dad jokes, is I was laser engraving dad jokes on little pieces of wood. So we got lots of little dad jokes and stuff like that. I was clearing snow off the driveway with my son today. He looked at me and said, "Dad, I wish you'd just use a shovel." And so I've got a couple of these. If anybody's interested in having something laser engraved, then I can do those. I will send these for the cost of postage. So if you want to cover the postage, I'll send these out to you. Or if you've got like any other kind of motivational saying or something like that, if you want it engraved on a little piece of wood plank or whatever, let me know, and we can send that out. Bob does work says hello 12. So yeah, so lots of different commands that you can do. You can control the lights and stuff like that behind me with channel points and things like that. And I also added a raid command. So the raid command, when we're ready to raid out, we're not going to raid yet, but when we raid out, I'll do a bang raid command, and that's going to basically go pick a random dad joke and put some emotes around it, and we'll all copy and paste that into chat when we do our raid. But we're not raiding out just yet. Yeah, just working on fun little stuff like that on the chat bot has been kind of fun. The research command will actually take you over to how I tell people how to do company research. We've covered that on the stream in the past. You can go find that on the YouTube channel. There's a resume sample command which will take you to a Google Doc, which will give you like little portions of like, here's how you could do like your contact information at the top. Here's how you can talk about your projects. Here's how you can talk about work experience and so on. So yeah, lots of different things on there. The bang email is like the email newsletters and so on. Hello is just like a little hello there kind of thing that pops up. So yeah, all kinds of fun little things. Oh, 12 is back with the eyeballs. Oh, you're gonna pretend you're old? Should I pretend I'm old too? No. Good times, good times. So yeah, so if anybody's got other questions about interview prep, career advice, anything like that, I've been in the industry a long time. So just to give folks that are new some sort of info on me, I've been in the tech industry now going on 27 years. I've been an engineering manager at several jobs. I've been a director of engineering and held other director level roles. I'm currently doing developer relations for a company called Postman. So if you work with APIs, you might be familiar with the Postman tool. I do developer relations for them, which is basically a lot of content generation, blog posts, videos, workshops, technical talks at conferences, and so on. So that's where I currently work. But I've worked at other big companies like SendGrid, which was later bought by Twilio. I've worked in all kinds of industries. I've worked in gaming. I've worked in ad tech. I've worked in marketing. I've worked in all kinds of different kinds of roles. And so I help people out with how to build a resume, how to sort of show that value that you bring to a company, all that kind of stuff. Happy to chat about that anytime. I've also got a big fluffy dog. Come here, Fluff. Come on, get up here. Say hi to everybody. This is Riker. Riker loves to come by and say hi to everybody. Mostly he likes coming by and begging for cookies, but don't you? You like your cookies, don't you? Yeah. So yeah, he mostly comes by to beg for cookies. I might actually do a bit redeem or something like that to feed Riker a cookie. What do you think? Should I give you a cookie? Should I give you a cookie? You should. Oh, he's licking his lips like I should give you a cookie. I'll give you half a cookie. There we go. There you go. All right. Bang cookie. Yeah, it's not a bad one. Well, I'll probably do it on a bit redeem, just because if people just come by and do bang cookie, then we'll end up like overfeeding the dog. But if I do like 100 bits for a cookie or something like that, I might do something along those lines. So.
Well, like 500 channel points, maybe.
Channel points, maybe. More likely to do like bit redeems, because then that can all go back into the fundraiser and stuff like that. 1K channel points. 1K channel points. I can do 1,000 channel points. But yeah, there's lots of channel points you can do for like changing up the nano leaf lights and things like that. If you do bang nano leaf, it'll show you all the different sort of light patterns that you can set, and then there's a channel point redeem to actually set it to one of those things. There's like a Boba Fett and a Minecraft and things like that, and it'll just change the theme of the colors behind me. So yeah, there's all kinds of fun channel points you can do. There might still be one actually to change the Govy light, which you can't see because it's kind of blocking us here, but there's a Govy light down here, and there's one up along the ceiling that you don't really see as much. But there's a channel point redemption that'll change both of those with the other one as well. But But that one you don't really see the one on the ceiling anymore. But it is there. You can kind of see it on the wall, like up here, but not quite as much. But yeah, been having fun just building on the chatbot. So my Tuesday night stream is typically like working on the chatbot, doing something along those lines. One thing that I've been doing. So if you go look at the YouTube playlist, you'll see all these sort of clipped videos, which are part of like a full stream like this, where I just clip out like someone had a question, let me answer that. Someone had a question, let me answer that, and I clip those out. So I've been working on a way to automate that. I used to have all that code running on my Windows streaming PC and it worked fine, but then I moved the chatbot to a different computer, which no longer has access to the video that's actually getting recorded right now. And so I still have to fix that automation a little bit, where I can hit like a clip start, clip end, and it'll like keep track of those markers and actually extract that video on the fly, so that once my stream is over, I've got all those like smaller videos that I can upload to YouTube. Why are you making faces?
I'm looking at Finite Singular.
Oh, okay. There was a streamer, Nick Mad Science, who built a whole machine that would output a dog cookie from either a red or blue panel. You could redeem channel points for red or blue, and the dog would run to the dispenser you chose, and it would dispense. That's actually a cool idea. That's not a bad idea. I would love to 3D print something like that. My worry is that he would actually chew apart whatever I 3D printed in order to get at unlimited treats. But yeah, something like that could be kind of fun. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do that as a little side project. That could be fun.
Maybe you could like drop the cookie.
Or just drop the cookie from something. Or oh, you know what, we got those little catapults that we 3D printed. We could like catapult a cookie across the room or something. You could just go chase after it.
Maybe.
But that could get a little dangerous down here because it's still a little cluttered from moving around the workshop down here. I got still have a lot of stuff to kind of clean up and organize shelves and bins of stuff and whatever. But yeah, having some sort of like doggy cam where you can like fling a treat for the dog or something like that. That could be fun. Yeah, call it like bang yeet or something. We'll just yeet a cookie across the room. Yeah, that could be fun. Yeah, I'll. So if you do !to do, you'll see my to do list. I'm actually going to go add that to my to do list. So let me go find that window. It's here somewhere. Where is my emails? There it is. I'm going to go add that to my to do list. Let's see. That one is going to fall under. I will do that under the maker items. So we'll do a maker for a bang yeet, a dog cookie. Build a channel point redemption to yeet a cookie for Riker. Cool, done. It's on the to-do list. Great idea. All right, we'll go add that to the to-do list. So I think there's actually a channel point redemption you can do that will help sort of prioritize my to-do list. So you're welcome to redeem channel points to. So if you really want to see that built, then you can add that up the list. And so that'll be a combination of like a Tuesday thing and a Thursday thing. So Tuesday will be the chatbot, and Thursday will actually be like build the thing. I've also got other things like just Lego kits and stuff like that if you want to do a Lego kit. So lots of giveaways planned. We've got the giveaway on the 14th for Pi Day. We'll be giving away a Raspberry Pi if someone can drop for 3.14. We're going to have a giveaway. Well, we just did the big giveaway of the treasure chest. And we did like a progressive jackpot thing for that. And so a bunch of people got like a bunch of $10 gift cards, and we gave away a $90 gift card. And Attila, who won, actually turned around. They donated that $90 right back to the charitable group on Loop. So we were super thankful for that. But we're going to do a giveaway on the 14th. The whole month of April is going to be our month-long giveaway, where we're going to do like some sort of 3D printed thing. You can come by every time I stream. We'll do like a little 3D printed giveaway. Every time you come by the stream and you enter the daily giveaway, it'll give you an entry into the monthly giveaway. The monthly giveaway is usually a bigger prize of some kind, and we'll draw that like on May 1st. So every time I stream in April, come by, do bang giveaway, and you'll join that daily giveaway. That'll also give you a monthly entry into the whole month-long giveaway. And that's usually something like a Lego set or something like that. That'll be something big to kind of give away there. And then, so we're going to do the month-long giveaway in April and July and October. And that's mostly to drive the donations for the community donation drive for the diversity and tech fundraisers that I do. And again, my employer also matches some of that money as well. And so as we donate, my employer is also going to help donate as well. So it's awesome of them to do that. So the Ian Douglas 736 flat pack 3D prints are awesome. Yeah, so we sent out some of those like little catapult kits and the little like Star Wars ships and stuff like that. We sent those out for free to people. Um, and yeah, but as I get into things like the laser engraving, building this kind of stuff out, I've got other laser engrave projects kind of cooking and working in the background. And then airbrushing. I bought an airbrush. I'm gonna get into airbrushing a 3D printed dragon model that kind of all goes together. I want to get into and airbrush that. When I finish that, we're going to give that away. So like things like this that, like we did this on Thursday. If people want to just pay for postage, I'll just ship you the thing. And so you can contact me if you want that, or you can just let me know in chat that, you can send over a PayPal thing for a couple of bucks and I'll send that thing to you in the mail. Um, so yeah, as I'm learning some of the stuff, like learning how to airbrush, I'm gonna give away that airbrush dragon, and it's a big model too. It's like I want to say 18 inches square or cubed. It's like a pretty sizable dragon model. And so as I paint that, that's gonna get given away. As I learn new things about the laser engraver, I'm gonna give that stuff away. As I do other 3D printed based things, we give that stuff away. So that's all part of what I'm going to be doing based on the Thursday night streams. Is kind of my maker time, but I'm going to give away the stuff that we make on that one. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, now I got all kinds of ideas brewing about the 3D printed coding channel redeem to like eat a cookie for the dog. I'll have to think of like where to set that up down here that I can put a camera on it. I might put a camera down at that end, facing down this way, and we'll like yeet it off the desk or something like that. But we'll need some sort of like thing that beeps or something to alert the dog that this thing's going to happen. Although it's going to end up being like a Pavlov's dog, kind of ring the bell and the dog starts drooling because he knows a treat's on the way. But we'll figure out something. But I need to make sure that that redeem is only done when I'm actually streaming because my bot is running all the time. So if you ever want to come by and ask an anonymous question, you can always ask the bot even when I'm offline, and it'll actually stream over to the Discord community. So if you want to come hang out on Discord, there's a whole channel in there called Anonymous Questions. So anything that gets asked anonymously will actually show up in Discord as an anonymous thread in the Anonymous Questions channel. Sometimes I'll draw from those questions. If I'm running out of things to talk about on the stream, I'll just go grab a question out of there. And so you're always welcome to ask questions anonymously as well. Some people don't like their name attached. Some people feel safer just asking something anonymously. So, Finance says even better if you do a point of view camera on the puppy, GoPro streaming to the PC. I mean, it would be a pretty fast stream of him like scampering down the hall to like go get a cookie. Because it's not that long. I mean, even if I set up a camera down there, down to that end, that's only about 10, 15 feet long at most. So it would be a very quick, point of view camera for sure. I think it might be more fun just to show like a laser pointer of where the thing might actually land and then like have it launch the cookie from there. But yeah, we need some kind of like beep or music sequence or something that the dog will start to recognize like, oh, there's a treat, in a few seconds or something like that. Yeah, that could be fun. Could be fun to build something like that.
Command that lets him know that he's about to get a treat.
Yeah, well, that's what
Or
I'm
just
saying.
tell
Like,
him
yeah,
that
like
he's about
play
to.
something like, "Hey, Riker, come get a cookie" or something like that. Like, just have it play a little audio clip or something like that. The other thing I'm building for work is a claw machine. So like one of those little toy claw grabber things. So I'm going through the design on that. I'm going to be ordering a 3D printer to actually do most of that work, and then I'm going to be modifying the 3D printer to turn it into a claw machine. So I'll be streaming about that probably in April as well during the daytime on my work account. So I also have an Ian the Postmonaut account. I'll probably be streaming building that in the month of April. So I want to get that done like April or May kind of timeline. Just to modify like an existing 3D printer to like move the thing backwards and forwards, and that's all going to be controlled over APIs. And eventually, I would love to hook that up to our live stream for work so that while we're live streaming, people can be like, move left, move right, move forward, move backward, drop the claw kind of thing, and see if they can win a prize. That kind of thing would be fun as heck, I think. Pavlov's dog experiment is much better than a Schrodinger's cat experiment. This is true. This is very true.
Schrodinger's cat could die.
Yep.
Pavlov's dog is just, oh hey, this might happen anytime.
Well, I mean, technically, Schrodinger's cat is both alive and dead. You just don't know until you actually open the box. So, but if there are no air holes in the box, I think you got a pretty good chance of knowing what the answer is going to be. So, did Schrodinger poke air holes in the box? I think that would be the first question. Otherwise, there's 100% chance that I know what the result of that cat in the box isn't going to be. Yeah, some sort of air generator. So interesting thing about airplanes, you know how when you're on an airplane, they're like, if the cabin loses pressure and the mask comes down, you just pull on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's not actually an oxygen tank anywhere feeding that oxygen mask. It's actually a chemical reaction, and pulling the mask down actually breaks like a couple of chemicals together that actually makes oxygen on the fly. And so it's not like a big tank of oxygen on the plane that everybody's sharing. There's like little individual like chemical reactions that happen when you pull that thing down. It actually like breaks these things, and that's what generates the oxygen. So
The opposite of fire.
it's not really. It's not really.
Fires need oxygen.
Well, it's not the opposite of fire. It's the fuel that would be. Yeah, it would be the fuel for the fire for sure. But now you know. That's how those little airplane mask things work. So yeah. So let's see what else we got going on. That's pretty much it, I think. So most of today that I wanted to chat about is just like be prepared. You never know when you're going to need to get into a job interview kind of scenario. Hopefully, it doesn't happen to anybody anytime soon. But if it does, being prepared for it is better than not being ready and having to start from scratch. So keep your resume up to date. Keep your resume up to date. Keep your list of accomplishments ready to go. Practice interviewing with people as much as you can. I think it'll help kind of shorten your job hunt overall. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go pick a raid target. I think we're gonna go raid over to Irish John Games. He's been working on a pirate game for a long time. I think looks like he's watching Spaceballs right now, which is also lots of fun. It's a little Star Wars spoof if you haven't seen Spaceballs. But yeah, we're gonna go raid over to Irish John Games. Let me do the raid command that I made. So as we raid over, if you want to copy this, oops, helps if I spell it properly. So this is going to go pull up a random dad joke and build a little raid command for us. So if everybody can copy and paste this in chat when we get over there, that would be a big help. I'm going to go set up the raid command here, raid to Irish John Games. If everybody wants to go copy that and get ready to paste that in chat as we raid over, that would be fantastic. Irish John is part of the team Moco Loco, or the Moco Loco team here on Twitch, which Devin and Derek invited me to join, and so I was thrilled to do that as a fellow maker. So Yearn rocks for sure. Yep. So we'll go right over to his channel, and we'll hang out over there for a little bit. So drop that raid command for me when we get over there, and we'll catch everybody over on that stream. We'll see you on Tuesday for some coding, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. If your weekend's already over, have a great week. If you do have questions about the job hunt, reach out to me anytime on the socials. I try to use Ian Douglas 736 on all the platforms, so you can reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. We'll catch everybody next time. Cheers.